Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Where today, am I the jerk for telling my daughter that if she wants to move back in with me, she has to obey my rules? I'll keep the background short. I divorced my ex-husband when my daughter, Maria, was 10. I got the house, but I was a stay-at-home mom, so I had trouble making ends meet. So lots of budgeting after I got a job in my field again. My ex didn't have this problem and he could spoil her. He spoiled her rotten, and it really affected our relationship. I would tell her that I can't afford to get her a $1,000 laptop, and it would cause a huge argument about how dad is better. I tried to get her a job. Argument happened. When she was 17, she decided to drop out from high school. I told her no. She told me it was her life and she can do what she wants. Another argument, and she left to go live with her dad permanently. I tried to contact her multiple times, but she told me I wasn't her mother anymore and to just leave her alone. She's now 21 and her dad has gotten remarried and basically kicked her out. She called me and we met up. She wants to move back in with me, and I told her only under these conditions. 1, she needs to get her GED. 2, she needs to be working a job at least 25 hours a week. 3, she needs to be looking into what her career will be and either go to a trade school or college. 4, she won't need to pay rent but needs to buy her own stuff, like clothes and personal items. 5, she needs to contribute to the shared areas. Chores, she would refuse to do them as a kid. And 6, finally, no partying lifestyle. She needs to focus on getting her life together, not going out every night like she used to. Save that for the weekend. She called me a crazy jerk and said that I'm a horrible mother. I informed her that she made it clear she has no mother. She stormed out and I'm getting angry texts now. You're the jerk. This poor girl had to go through her parents getting divorced when she was 10. Then she had her mom blaming her for the manipulation of the ex-husband. You gave up on a teenager. 21 is still so young, but my kids could come home at any age. You chose to have a kid, you chose who would be the father of that kid, and you chose how to raise her. Now you have the chance to get her back in your life and away from her dad, the guy who was so bad that you divorced him and who kicked out his own kid. But you'd rather be harsh and compassionless by demanding to control her life instead of being understanding and encouraging. It sounds like you were thrilled to throw "you're not my mother" back at her. She's been through so much at such a young age, and you're supposed to be her mom, not the agent of her karma. You're the jerk. I hope she lands on her feet, and I hope she knows that she was never the problem. You're the jerk. Yes, she's technically an adult at 21. However, she's only in this situation because of her father enabling her choices and you essentially abandoning her. You're holding her actions from when she was a kid over her. She had no guidance growing up and you bailed when it got hard. You need to help her get there, and it won't be easy for either of you now that she's gotten older. Whatever happened between you and her dad for you to absolutely give up on trying with her is a true shame. You failed her as much as her father failed her. I'm appalled at everyone who's saying this is a reasonable reaction. Yes, some of the rules are reasonable and necessary to establish boundaries, respect, etc. But you need to ease her into this. It's setting her up for failure when she needs support from one of her parents. She's currently being rejected by both of you, and you need to realize you're only contributing to this damage. You're the jerk. Things change a lot in the human brain from 17 to 21. It'll change even more in the next few years. You're her mom and held her to her hormonal teen year words. She was a stupid kid then. Even if she wanted and planned to do the things on your messed up list, just asking her to do so is insulting as heck. Not the jerk. You sound like you have an actual brain. Your daughter is an idiot, just like these people on Reddit. I hope you don't take their advice seriously. Most of these people haven't touched the grass or felt the breeze blowing in their face in the last 10 years. Never take advice from this new generation of weak-minded idiots who are in a never-ending competition of who can be the biggest victims. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know. Funny thing is, all these commenters who think mom is being unreasonable, they're the ones whose parents failed them. OP's just trying to get her daughter on the right track so her kid doesn't end up like these commenters. Whoa, Karen, that's kinda harsh, no? Sometimes truth hurts, Reddit boy. You know we lose subscribers every time you say something like that, right? Yeah, well, hopefully we can gain some new ones with above single-digit IQs. Subscribe to the channel if you have above single-digit IQ. Would I be the jerk for not telling my husband I'm pregnant until after he's back from his trip? My husband is a stay-at-home dad to our 4-year-old daughter. He's an extremely devoted and loving dad who has barely spent any time away from her, and she's a major daddy's girl. In 2 weeks, he's going to his best friends from college for a whole week. He's going to be reuniting with his college friends that he hasn't seen or spent time with all together since our own wedding. He originally wanted the 3 of us to go, but I convinced him to just go by himself because I think being alone would make him enjoy it more, so he didn't have to do childcare. I think our daughter's too young for that big of a trip, for people she's only met once. And also, I'm planning on taking a week off work and would love to spend one-on-one time with her that we so rarely get. This morning, I learned that I'm pregnant. We've been trying for some time now, and we really want lots of kids. So I'm over the moon, and I know my husband and daughter will be too. I've not told my husband yet. My first pregnancy was a huge prepper, and when I learned I was pregnant, he went into overdrive with preparing, researching, and taking care of me. He was incredibly helpful and loving, and it was so sweet, but he also really worked himself up and got stressed. I don't think it'll be as bad with this one, but I could still see it being a lot. I honestly don't really want to tell him until after his trip in 3 weeks, even though it's a huge secret for me to keep. I know he'll potentially be upset, which with him is very tame, when he finds out I'd known for 3 weeks, but would get over it fast. My concern with telling him is I could honestly see it ruining his trip. I cannot imagine the constant texts asking me questions for the millionth times or sharing his most recent thoughts. I really want him to have a chill and fun trip and be able to decompress. And for myself, I want to be able to just focus on having a great time with my daughter. But I also don't want to just hide something so hugely important to our family from him, since he obviously deserves to know. I can't really decide. Would I be the jerk if I decided to wait to tell him until after his trip? Not the jerk, but definitely don't tell anyone else before him. OP. Oh yeah, definitely not telling anyone else. That's why I'm asking Reddit for advice on this, and not friends or family. Although I may tell my daughter right before he gets home, because I'm loving all of the surprise suggestions I'm seeing, especially with her wearing a big sister shirt. Update. So I hadn't planned to give an update so soon, but even though I'd planned on waiting until after my husband's trip, after a few days it became clear to me I could not wait that long. He definitely knew something was up with me. I've been getting crazy excited and had been chomping at the bit to tell him. And honestly, it just didn't feel good to keep something that big from him for so long. We've been trying for this baby for close to a year now, and it's such happy news, and I decided it's just not worth it. But I still wanted to give him the surprise I had planned. I asked him to go out to the store to grab something really quick, and before he got home, I had my daughter put on the shirt I'd gotten her that had "Only Child" crossed out with "Big Sister" written underneath. When he came through the front door, she sprinted to him, yelling about how her shirt had a secret message for him. He was very taken aback, and it took him a second, but once it clicked, he was beyond excited, as was our very confused daughter once we told her. She started dancing around the house singing about having a baby sister, which she is adamant it will be, and it was just a really good day. He's still going on his trip and has not even been close to as stressed as he was last time. If anything, he's looking forward to it even more now because he knows it's going to be a last chance to really decompress before things become a whole lot crazier. Thank you to everyone for all the lovely comments and responses that I got. I really appreciated them all. I showed my husband the post and admitted my original plans, and he got a big kick out of it. But he's very glad that I told him before the trip. What? A wholesome story with 2 parents that are still married and a happy kid? No divorce? No cheating? No... Yeah, I feel like we hit a glitch in the Matrix or something. Where did Reddit go and what universe are we in? Don't get too excited, Karen. Here's one to bring you back to reality. Am I the jerk for not telling my boyfriend I own the building we live in? When I was 18, my dad gifted me a house with 2 stories. I'm extremely thankful. We're not upper class, but my dad bought this house for a cheap price a long time ago. It was his grandmother's cousin's house. I know that this was an extreme privilege, and I'm forever grateful for this. The layout of this building is like an apartment, but it's a house. So basically, each story has its own separate entry, its own kitchen and bathroom. I live upstairs while I rent out the downstairs. My boyfriend, 25, male, moved in with me about 3 months ago, and we've been together for 6 months. I've not asked him for money, neither for utilities or to pay me any rent. The only thing he contributes to is groceries, that we split 50-50. I've not brought up that I own the building, as it's not something I tell many people. If people ask me, I of course tell them that I own it. But if they just assume that I'm a renter, then they can believe that. The topic of a landlord, the renter downstairs, or the owner of the building has not been something we've talked about. This last Tuesday, the renter came up to tell me that her freezer had stopped working. I answered the door, and my boyfriend heard us talking, I suppose. I went downstairs to take a look, and we came to the conclusion that she would buy a new one, send me the receipt, and I would give her the money. She was very grateful for this solution. When I went upstairs, my boyfriend asked if it could be fixed. I told him no, but she was going to buy a new one and I would pay for it. He looked at me like I was crazy and asked me why would I pay for her freezer. I told him that because I am her landlord, the freezer was there when she started renting. I would stand for the cost. He just asked me if I was serious, to which I said I was. He began screaming at me, asking why the heck I would hold this information from him and that I was an evil person. I said I was sorry for not telling him, but I did not think that it would matter. He said he could not believe he was together with someone who was a landlord, that all of us just use people for money, and that the only thing we people care about is money, and would rather have people be homeless than offering affordable rent. The downstairs is 1 kitchen, 1 bath, and 4 other rooms. I charge $500 in rent. I understand many people have had trouble with landlords, but I try my best to be a good one. He demanded that I give him 50% of the money I make from rent, or else I would be just as bad as he thought I was. Was I really the jerk for not telling him? He has not talked to me since Tuesday, and I've tried telling him that I'm truly sorry, but he doesn't answer me at all. Not the jerk. He showed his true colors at, give me half the money or you're just as bad as any other landlord. If he actually thought you renting out the lower half of the building was morally reprehensible, the ultimatum would be stop charging the person downstairs rent, or offer to sell the downstairs unit to them, or even donate the profit to charities that help people secure stable housing. But no, he only actually cares that he didn't know about this stream of income and now he wants in. Not the jerk. Dump him. I know that's a common response on this subreddit, but this dude was happy to exploit you for free lodging, and now that he finds out you've got income he wasn't aware of, he wants half of it just because, or else you're a big meanie? You do not owe him an apology, you owe him a kick in the rear. OP. He sees it as both a way of me proving that I'm not renting as a way to grab money from people, so that money is not what I care about, I should have no trouble giving him half, but also as a way to prove to him that I'm sorry for not telling him earlier that I own the building. Let me get this straight. He must not have offered to pay half of the rent because then it would have come up and you would have told him, right? He's living with you rent-free. Up to now, he thought you were paying the entire rent. On what planet does he deserve half of the tenant's rent money? Please reconsider this relationship, not the jerk. OP. No, he did not offer to pay any of the rent. If he offered, I would have explained to him that I own the building. In hindsight, I should have told him that it was my building that he would be living in with me, even if he didn't ask. I think that outburst really showed me how he was. I thought about breaking up with him, but also thought I was maybe overthinking it. If it comes to that, at least I learned something for future relationships. You're the jerk. Landlords are always the jerk, no matter what the circumstances. Humans are people, and people do not exist for you to profit off of. There is never an excuse to be greedy and use people to make money. Plus, with the housing crisis the way it is, people like you who hoard housing just because you're rich, it makes me sick. You're no better than the millionaires who own Walmart and Amazon, exploiting people for profit. This is why I joined the anti-work movement 8 years ago, and I've never looked back. With the taxes that the rich pay, there are resources for all of us to not have to work and still receive monthly payments to live comfortably on. They make it complicated to try to keep you from doing it, but trust me, it's all worth it once you have that monthly check and you never have to work again. Oh, you're mad that I get to draw all day and watch my favorite shows while you slave away? Then join the movement and stick it to these millionaires. Or be a fool and keep slaving away at jobs you hate for literally a few dollars an hour. I make twice my state's minimum wage and I never even have to leave my apartment. Edit. To those of you who are mad that I'm winning in life, keep your opinions to yourself, but have fun at work. I'll be watching Adventure Time. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. Am I wrong? I'm not comfortable with my husband being friends with this female coworker. Coworker, female 24, we'll call her Debbie, started working with my husband, male 35. We'll call him Charlie, 2 years ago. Last September, I met her for the first time at a wedding of 2 of their coworkers. She sat behind us. The girl getting married does not like my husband, but he's on the same shift, and the whole shift was invited to the wedding. The girl getting married had called Charlie a snake to Debbie in casual conversation. They're not friends, and Charlie is generally a good person in my opinion, so that's not a red flag to me. Debbie told Charlie about this. At this point, it's a running inside joke that I was privy to. Back to the wedding. Charlie texts Debbie, snake, and Debbie mouths, stop, all flirty. I did think it was flirty, but thought that maybe it was just her personality. Fast forward to the shift Christmas party last year. We've been hosting shift Christmas parties at our house for 2 years. The whole shift was there, but Debbie brings her twin sister as her plus one. One thing about their job is it's a male-dominated field, but I'm friends with a few of his coworkers' wives. So during the party, all the women were hanging out, except Debbie and her twin sister. She was hanging out with the guys. I just assumed it was because she didn't really know most of the women. No big deal. But the next day, she sends Charlie a couple of photos that she had snapped of him without his knowledge. The photos were accompanied by the text, "Why did I take these? Lol." He showed me this and his response, which was pretty PG, but I did remark something along the lines of, "I think she has a crush on you." He brushed it off. Fast forward to February. His coworkers are all in their 20s, and they convinced Charlie to get a Snapchat. I've never been a fan of Snapchat, and Charlie has never had any form of social media except Reddit. After he gets Snapchat, I noticed he's on his phone a lot more. I'm naturally a nosy person, and I realize this is a flaw of mine. So I noticed that he's beginning to talk about Debbie more, and I start questioning on who he's chatting with. One thing I notice is that every single time he works overtime, she snaps him and asks him if he's working, or she'll ask if he worked it the next day. I tell him she's starting to make me uncomfortable. He brushes it off. March, we go to a new coworker's house on a Wednesday night for a dinner party. None of the wives that I'm friends with are there. I also have to work on Thursday, and no one else does. Before we go to the party, we discuss leaving at a reasonable time. At 9:45 p.m., I ask him what time we're leaving. He hems and haws around, and I admittedly get frustrated and walk off. He gets mad and decides that he's staying as late as he wants to. I keep asking when we're leaving and reminding him that I have to work. I spend the rest of the night crying on the couch in a stranger's house. 4 people come to check on me. Charlie and Debbie never do, and I can see them sitting beside each other outside. Edit. We end up leaving the party at around 1:30 a.m. May. We go to a hot air balloon festival an hour from our home. He sees on our Snapchat story that Debbie is about 30 minutes away. He tells her where we are and asks her to meet up. I'm not really privy to this conversation, except that I asked him who he was talking to, and it was her. We get in an argument and leave before she arrives, and then he tells me that's what they were talking about. June. We go to London for vacation, and we're arriving back in the States on our anniversary. I post a super cute slideshow. Debbie sees it. Debbie then snaps Charlie about someone breaking into her car. I express that I think it's weird. August. Charlie says that he stopped talking to Debbie because it made me upset. He has been distancing from me for a few months though, so I still have a gut feeling that something's not right. He got a new phone in July, but saved his old phone. I let my intrusive thoughts win, and I look through his old phone. Charlie and Debbie talked on the phone for 45 minutes while I was at work, and they were both off work. I log into Charlie's TikTok account. He sent her a video from Barstool Sports of a girl telling a guy, "I have a crush on you," and the guy reacting really good to it. 2 days before he sent that video, Debbie reposts one that says, "When you are trying to go to sleep, but all you can think about is wanting him in your bed." 2 days after he sent her the crush video, she reposts a video that says, "The most confusing place you can be is knowing you have a connection with someone, but you're not officially together, but you're more than friends." I confront him and tell him that this is an inappropriate relationship. After I confront him, she deletes her videos. He claims he didn't talk to her about it and still maintains that they stopped talking. Last week, I decided to check his Snapchat on his old phone because I'm still having a gut feeling. They've been #1 BFFs on Snapchat for at least 2 weeks. They talk every single day. She sends him a pic of herself in her pajamas. "Now I'm in my PJs, lol," while I'm looking. It wasn't risque, but I have never once sent any of my male friends a selfie of myself, much less in my pajamas. I tell him I'm not comfortable with their friendship and I would like him to stop being friends with her. Side note, we are in couples therapy as well. During a fight, he tells me that he likes having friends. I have no problem with any of his other friends. I asked him why he lied and said he stopped talking to her. He said because he knew I didn't like it. I feel like I can no longer trust him, and he basically told me that he would rather be friends with her than married to me. I've asked all of my friends if I'm overreacting, and all of them have told me to leave him. We've been married 13 years and together for a total of 15 years. So Reddit, am I overreacting? What does your therapist say? Therapist doesn't understand why he won't just stop talking to her, but also doesn't believe that it will be enough for me. Is he attractive? I mean, personally, I think he's attractive. Update. So I gave him an ultimatum, do not recommend, and he has a lawyer friend. He went to see his friend 2 days later. He decided it wasn't for him. Our therapist convinced him to block the coworker. We were working on the marriage. I honestly think we were making progress. We were starting to be able to talk about issues without them getting super heated. He was actually opening up in therapy. And then he was triggered by his avoidant detachment style. He went to Debbie's birthday dinner and I didn't. He stayed at his parents' house and came home the next day. I got a Snapchat request from a new female friend and noticed on my list that Debbie had a top friend in common with me. I don't really use Snapchat except to send videos to a female friend that has an iPhone while I have an Android. So I have 2 best friends on Snapchat, Carrie and Charlie. Debbie has the sunglasses emoji next to her name on my list. It can only mean that Charlie added her back. I asked him to pack a bag and leave. I'm calling a lawyer ASAP Monday. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Dang, OP, that really sucks, but I'm glad you stood up for yourself. What was the reason he decided to go to the party? Also, why did he stay at his parents'? That's really suspicious. How did he react when you asked him to leave? OP, he had told me about the party Wednesday and we had planned to go together. Friday morning, we had a counseling appointment and the therapist basically told him he needed to start feeling his feelings instead of bottling them in. This triggered his avoidant attachment style. He seemed down all day and I told him I wasn't going to the party. He told me that he wasn't going to change right before he left and I told him we couldn't work without changes. That's why he stayed at his parents. He came back Saturday and I asked him to leave Saturday night. BS, he stayed with his parents. OP should call the in-laws to make sure he's lying. Might be good evidence for the divorce. It's sad what's happened to OP, but at the same time, divorce is really the best option because OP's husband is unreliable and definitely has the hots for Debbie. Won't be surprised if the husband and Debbie had an affair this entire time. If my husband told me he'd rather be friends with another woman than be married to me, I would be done. He's 35 and she's 24. They may get together for a while, but then she'll move on to wreck someone else's marriage. Am I the jerk for asking my husband to stay away an extra day when he travels? My husband travels for both work and pleasure every 2 to 3 months and 3 to 7 days at a time. He gets restless without it, so I never have a problem with it. The only thing is for the day or so he comes back, he is not helpful and wants to lounge around, sleep in, and be gruff. We have a 6-year-old who has some special needs, and I hate thinking I have extra hands to help or an adult to talk to, only to have another kid to take care of. After the day, he perks back up and things are okay again. After the last time, I asked him to stay away for another day. I told him I'd pay for a hotel or he could crash with a friend. He got really upset and said he likes to crash in his bed and that he was hurt I didn't want him just because he wasn't useful. I told him that it's just really hard to have him around when he's not himself. My mom agrees with me, but my dad said he'd be hurt by the sentiment. Our friends are split, with most saying they get it, but I presented it coldly. Am I the jerk for not wanting to deal with him when he first gets back? ETA. The part that makes it hard is our daughter tries to get in his face and interact with him, and he just wants to rest. I have to take her away and calm her down and try and get her happy again. They usually have a tight bond, and she's used to getting his attention, so it's just hard on both of us that he wants to laze for a day. I've also suggested he come back on a work day and take the day off so he can relax. He's great when he's himself, but he gets exhausted traveling. Also, for those asking, I think there's a huge difference on the work trips and the personal trips. When work exhausts him, I get it. When he's been traveling with his friends, I do expect him to come back and chip in, or just not make things harder. I think the hard part is really that this is an area we struggle to communicate on. I think in my head, the compromise has always been, I don't mind if you travel a lot, but when you're here, I need you on because single parenting is hard. Like so many on this thread, I think we just need to communicate better. He gets restless with what? He travels for pleasure while you stay home to take care of your kid? That already just sounds off. Is he cheating? Does he have another family you don't know about? Heck, I'd tell him not to come back at all. OP. He travels with a bunch of his friends that have been doing it for years. None of the rest have kids, and I think that's sometimes part of the bigger problem. I think sometimes he forgets that it's tough to juggle the single parent aspect of it, so I think I felt like compromises in my head would just make it easier for me. We need to communicate better on this. Not the jerk, and I can't believe how many people are making excuses for him. Consistently coming home, but basically ignoring his kid because he needs time to relax for an entire day after being gone is unacceptable. He's actually being a burden by upsetting your daughter, not just not being useful. He's making life harder for you. Why not use the money you'd spend on extending his stay to pay for a babysitter and a house cleaner, and ordering in food so you can both have a do-nothing day. Is that possible? Am I the jerk for calling my sister-in-law pathetic during a family dinner? My fiance, Chris, 24 male, is the youngest in his family with 2 older siblings, a brother who's 31 and a sister who's 29. I, also 24 male, have one sister who is 9 years younger than me. I don't put much stock into the whole "your birth order determines your entire personality" thing, but I do think it might enhance traits we already have. I've always naturally been a pretty quiet, even-tempered, nurturing kind of guy. I think I would still be all of those things regardless. Having a little sister when I did just amplified them. Meanwhile, Chris was very much the baby of his family. He wasn't spoiled, just taken care of in the same way my sister is. I've known Chris's family since we were 16. I've never personally had any problems with them, but I did witness a few fights between him and his sister over the years. The fights were always about Chris being a golden child and either getting more privileges or attention than she did, or getting similar privileges earlier in life. I stayed out of it as this was between the two of them. I didn't see the point in stepping into family dynamics like that, especially since I would have been a minor at the time arguing with a woman in her 20s. This past Thursday night, we left on a weekend trip with his family. We left pretty late Thursday. We had already been driving for a few hours, and Chris gets hot and uncomfortable pretty easily, so he wasn't feeling too great. His dad went through a drive-thru, and as we were sitting in the parking lot eating, I asked if there was anything I could do to make him more comfortable. He had forgotten to unbuckle his own seatbelt, so I did it for him and just told him to relax and enjoy his food. His sister made some sort of comment about him getting coddled, but I took it as a joke and brushed past it. Fast forward to last night. While we were out at dinner, it was uncharacteristically warm in the little restaurant we chose. Chris had worn a hoodie with nothing underneath while I was wearing a t-shirt, so we went into the bathroom to switch. It wasn't a big deal until when we sat back down, his sister said, "Looks like you're still getting the golden boy treatment, huh?" I'm usually not a confrontational person, but I was annoyed enough by the multiple comments. I said, "It's a little pathetic that you're almost 30 and you're still rehashing the same argument you had when Chris and I were 16 years old." She ended up going to wait in the car while we finished our meal. It's been tense since then, and while no one has brought it up, I'm not sure if I overstepped. Am I the jerk? Edit. The 2 examples I gave are not regular occurrences. As I said in a comment, to me, these are just instances of me being considerate of my significant other. Acts of service is big for me when it comes to expressing my love. He does the same for me, as we all should for our partners. If Chris gets hot, why isn't he wearing layers? You obviously love him, but from an outside perspective, he does seem a bit coddled from the 2 examples you gave. Everyone sucks here. You for calling her out publicly, her for making the comment. Even if you doted on your fiance, why does his jealous sister have to make negative comments? I would have said something, not the jerk. I've seen the comments where you say these are not normal occurrences, but it really comes across like Chris is so used to being looked after, it's become instinctual to both of you. If he gets hot and bothered so easily, he would be the first to unbuckle his seatbelt so as to be comfortable, and he certainly wouldn't wear a hoodie with nothing underneath it. Look, if you're happy to look after him and he likes being looked after, great. But it doesn't mean sister isn't right. I'm curious, did she comment in a bitter way, or it's normal teasing between siblings? Everyone sucks here if it's the former, you're the jerk if the latter. Everyone sucks here. Your fiance needs your help wearing a shirt and unbuckling his seatbelt, and you're trying to argue that you don't coddle him? You're the jerk to yourself. You're now a parent to Chris. His sister is right. He's being babied, and it's a little weird. My fiance is demanding I sell my rental properties. 2 years ago, I, 36 male, proposed to my fiance, 30 female, and our wedding is going to be this coming summer. When we met, we both owned properties. She owned a pretty typical luxury townhouse, and I owned 2 properties in the inner city. We both agreed that when it was time to cohabitate, we'd live in her condo. I own an old 2 upstairs, 2 downstairs duplex in a neighborhood that butts right up against an old industrial area, which I was living in until we moved in together. And on the next block, I also own a 4,000 square foot concrete block industrial building. I got them as part of a screaming package deal about 12 years ago when you couldn't even give property away in that neighborhood. I now rent the duplex to a couple of families, and God, I hope they never leave me. Best renters ever. And I rent half of the factory building to a guy who does HVAC and the other half to some microbrewery hipsters. The value has gone way up since I've owned these places, and I'm making buku bucks on these rentals. I could lose my job tomorrow and not even blink. My fiance does not see it this way. Ever since we've moved in together, she's been pestering me to sell the places. It's been ramping up the closer we get to the wedding. I keep telling her that as long as I own these places, it's practically guaranteed third source of income, and it would be invaluable if either of us hit a rough patch job-wise. She couldn't see it that way though. All she sees is a potential big pile of liquid cash that can go towards our wedding, honeymoon, and upgrades to the living situation after. We had the biggest blow up yet about it last Saturday, and I kind of lost it. I'm a saver and she's a spender, and I said that to her in far less pleasant terms, and also mentioned the amount of credit card debt she has, and since then, things have been pretty frosty. Am I the jerk for refusing to sell my second income? Update. The conversation didn't happen until recently. Life got in the way. It started fine, but quickly went south and ended in a big fight that turned pretty petty by the end of it. She accused me of not trusting her. Fair. And I pointed out that her habits make it basically impossible to trust her with money anyway. Probably not my proudest moment. But I did again make it clear in no uncertain terms that the properties are staying in the LLC and I won't sell them, and that the financial decisions regarding them would be mine alone. I may have also had a few choice words about the princess for a day wedding she wanted. After a couple of weeks of avoiding each other and not talking, and me sleeping in the basement of the townhouse, I said I wanted to hit the pause button and leave for a while. She was upset but didn't say much. I loaded up my things and went to my parents' house and told them what happened. They told me I could stay as long as I need to. Somewhere near the end of April, I got a call from her dad out of the blue, demanding to know what was going on and why I'd broken things off. I tried to explain what had been going on, but he was the angry dad of an upset young woman, and I don't think much got through. That call ended with him calling me a scumbag and hanging up on me. I've only had a few properly long-term relationships end in my lifetime, but that's the first time I've had an angry father yell at me about it. There's been no contact since. I'm sad that just over 4 years of my life with someone went up in smoke like this, but that's the way it goes, I guess. My parents didn't seem very surprised when I showed up, so maybe I really was the last one to know what was going on, like so many Redditors were pointing out. For some good news, and also what reminded me to update my post, is that yesterday I bought another house, one for me to live in. A tiny little brick, post-war brick ranch house in an old subdivision about 20 minutes from my rentals. It needs work, but I'm looking forward to having a project to take my mind off of things. It's going to be strange living on my own again, but I think I'll manage. Yeah, that relationship was not going to last. They have incompatible views on finances, and neither of them were going to back down. They'd have ended up getting divorced pretty soon after the wedding. That argument wasn't going away or getting better. My in-laws started harassing me for destroying their family naming tradition. Plus update. Myself, 25 female, and my fiance, 27 male, have a 2-month-old son. We are overjoyed at being parents, but most of my in-laws are refusing to even see our baby because of a decision we made concerning his name. My in-laws have a tradition of giving the firstborn son of every generation the same name. Let's say it's Peter. This has been going on for about 7 generations already, and they're very serious about it. My fiance's eldest cousin was the latest person to be named Peter. Every one of his cousins has only had daughters so far, so our baby is the first son of his generation, and consequently should get the name. I have no problem with the name Peter, and would have been okay with naming my son that. Unfortunately, that was also the name of my uncle, who passed before I was born. I won't get into details, but it was horrible for my family. My father never got over losing his brother. My grandmother asked the family not to name any of our future kids Peter during her lifetime. My mother-in-law and father-in-law knew about this promise and at first seemed to not only be okay with us avoiding the name Peter, but also supportive of the one we chose. However, my grandmother sadly passed when I was 7 months pregnant. We traveled to her funeral. On our last days there, my in-laws called to offer me their condolences. Then my mother-in-law asked me if I was willing to think about the name Peter now. Suddenly, they were insistent that the name we chose was awful and we had to honor their tradition. According to them, they had only agreed to make an exception for us for my grandmother's sake and had no obligation to keep it now that she was gone. My family agrees that while it's true we don't have to avoid the name anymore, it still doesn't feel right to use it. My fiance agrees with me as well, but his parents spent the last weeks of my pregnancy trying to convince us to change our minds about the name. When our baby was born and we named him what we wanted to, my in-laws were furious that we had broken a 7-generation-old family tradition. Some of them hadn't previously wanted to name their sons Peter, but did it anyway for the family's sake. They said our decision was selfish and that my family should have moved on by now. This truly has nothing to do with whether my family has moved on or not. It just felt like a betrayal to my grandmother and uncle's memories to even consider using the name. My father-in-law offered us $1,000 to change our son's name to Peter after he was born. That was 2 months ago, and neither of my fiance's parents have met the baby or seen us since I was pregnant. Most of my in-laws are on their side, and this is causing a huge rift between my fiance and his family. He assures me I'm fine, but I'm starting to feel really guilty about this. Am I the jerk? Also, middle names aren't used in my country. Most people get the maternal surname before the paternal one instead. Edit 2. It wasn't $1,000. We're in a different country, different currency. It's still a lot of money, but would probably translate to about $200 US. Update. About a week after my post, my fiance's parents contacted us. They apologized for their behavior and begged to meet my son. They said they were ready to leave the naming debacle behind and truly wanted to be involved in their grandson's life. We were skeptical, but invited them over to meet the baby. The visit went well. They began coming over almost every day during the next 3 weeks. I noticed neither of them ever called my son by his name, but I didn't point it out. For the first time in months, things seemed good between my fiance and his parents. One day, my fiance was helping my father-in-law with something at our place, so my mother-in-law and I went to the park with my baby. Sometime later, I had to go to the bathroom, so I left him in the stroller with her. When I got back, she was sitting on a park bench chatting with another woman who was cooing over my son. I went over there and introduced myself as my son's mom, and she said, "I thought his name was Peter." I didn't say a word, and neither did my mother-in-law. She followed me to the car, and we went back to my apartment. On the way there, I texted my fiance about what had happened. The moment we got there, he kicked both of his parents out of our place. He had read my text and confronted his father. Thankfully, my father-in-law is a terrible liar and confessed immediately. Apparently, both my in-laws only call my son Peter. That includes whenever they're talking about him, every time they introduce him to someone else, and even baby talking to him on the few occasions they were with him. Neither of them are embarrassed by this, and they both think that they're in the right. We're heartbroken, especially my fiance. Not only because his parents can't let go of their pride, but also because the name we chose for our son means a lot to both of us. I blame myself for encouraging my fiance to allow them near him. I was raised in a different city than all of my grandparents and always wished they could have been more involved in my life. Losing my grandmother didn't help. Pretty much every doubt I had only existed because I thought it would be important for my son to grow up with all of his grandparents around. But now, all my guilt is gone. If they can't respect my son enough to call him by his name, they don't deserve to be in his life. I hope they enjoyed the 3 weeks they had with their grandson, because that's all they're getting until they get their heads out of their backside. Final update. My son is now 5 months old, almost 6. We're still no contact with my fiance's parents, who haven't seen us since May. We've both blocked them everywhere. His relatives who are on our side still are, and most of the ones who weren't haven't come around. If anything, they're even more upset now. I remember someone suggesting that my fiance's family might stop using the name after we decided not to. Well, you were right. Last week, one of my fiance's cousins announced she was pregnant with a boy. She included her baby's name in the announcement, and it's not Peter. What followed was a string of aggressive Instagram DMs from both mother-in-law and father-in-law. They both created accounts for the sole purpose of contacting me. I didn't see them until 2 days later. They sent me almost an hour's worth of voice messages about how I had ruined their family. They wished their son had never met me, that he had seen me for who I truly am, and that I had never gotten pregnant. Many of the messages ended with, "I hope you're happy now," as if they thought they were getting the last word, only to think of something else that they wanted to say. There was name-calling, an accusation of me cheating, and a persistent refusal to refer to my son as their grandchild. My fiance and I listened to the messages together. He hadn't gotten any. As much as I tried to distance myself, I was in tears by the time it was all done. I still don't regret anything, especially after the stunt they pulled back in May, but I'm not completely free of the guilt yet. Not to mention their complete disregard for their grandson. I was already having an overwhelming week, and this just seemed like the final straw. I must have spent close to an hour sobbing in my fiance's arms. Once I was calmer, he unblocked his parents just to scream at them for a while. I only heard his side of the conversation, but it was more than enough. He finished the call by saying he didn't want to hear from them again. We had a long talk afterwards. My fiance opened up about the emotional blackmail by his family before and after my pregnancy. My in-laws were close to threatening him with anything they could if we didn't name our son Peter. I told him about my guilt and how awful I felt for putting him through this. We reassured each other, cried a bit more, and had a mostly pleasant evening with our baby. We contacted his cousin. The family's giving her crap for breaking the tradition again. They're being way less aggressive with her though, and I think many of my in-laws are finally learning to let it go. We're not expecting any apologies anytime soon, but we'll be glad if they do come through. Our wedding will be in September of 2024, and whoever doesn't give us a sincere apology until then is uninvited. My fiance's parents are banned either way. We came to that decision together. My boyfriend asked me for $1,500 to buy a Halloween costume. Me, female 22, and my boyfriend, male 26, have been together for around 4 years. I recently was asked by him if he could get a personal loan under my name so that he could buy a Halloween costume. I'm feeling a bit unsure of how upset I should be or if I should even be upset about it. To explain his current situation, he currently has around $5,000 worth of debt and does not have a job and lives off payments from the government currently. When he originally asked, I got quite upset since for the last year his financial situation has continued to get worse, as I currently pay for his groceries and essentials and without aid doesn't have basic essentials like toilet paper or soap, let alone food, and can only meet the payments of his rent at the moment. When he asked me for the loan, it was about $1,500, and he wanted to have me open a personal loan since no financial lenders would give him any more money than he currently has on loan. I don't know why I felt like it was my breaking point, but I just cried and told him he was childish for asking me for money to buy something so stupid and haven't spoken to him for the last couple days. He asked me for money when he's already relying on me to buy his groceries and is in so much debt from buying video games and action figures, I'm struggling to figure out what to even do or say to him. The reason he wants to loan so much from me is for more of the same non-essential items that got him into debt in the first place. A custom-made Halloween costume seems like an outrageous thing to want to purchase in his current situation, but he doesn't see it as a big deal since in his words, "It's not a lot of money for you." And I think I just need advice on what approach might work to help him understand. No matter how much I've tried to explain the strain his dependence on me to support him with his basic needs has been when we don't live together, and despite me trying to suggest loan consolidation or a selected person to manage his funds on his behalf could benefit him, I feel like my approach isn't working. I would appreciate advice on what steps I can take or what approach I might be able to use instead in regards to talking to him and trying to resolve this issue in our relationship currently. Update. I'm sure most of you thought this was a dumb question to begin with and really tore through me, but for those who are kinder with their advice, I really appreciate it. I know I seem like an absolute idiot, but I think being with my boyfriend for so long, as well as since high school, made me feel extremely attached and like I wouldn't know what to do if he wasn't around. So in that way, I was definitely dependent on him. To clarify things, it was for a Spider-Man costume, and no, I did not give him the money. I spoke to him and he tried explaining that it was his cousin who forced him to ask me for the money, which I didn't believe and ended the relationship since a lot of your comments made me realize I have a seriously low standard for my dating pool and will have to reconsider my standards moving forward. I guess the reason I indulged this man for so long was because I felt pity for him in his situation. He lives off government disability payments due to having autism, ADHD, and severe clinical depression, and I think as we have progressed in our relationship, I slowly became his carer after his family moved away and had no one to take him to his appointments, especially after lockdown. I understand now that should have never been my job to pick up, and blurring those lines made me become financially and emotionally used as he had no one else to depend on. Anyways, I've broken up with my boyfriend. I'll try to listen to you guys and find someone who is more on my level of stability and self-reliance. Thank you for listening and giving me the wake-up call I needed to get out before I committed to marrying or having kids with him. New boss got the company in lots of trouble. I used to work for a big warehouse, but not as big as Amazon, for inventory management. From the first day, I noticed that our workflow is super slow due to old software used for the office and warehouse. Since I wanted to impress my boss and my coworkers, I used some of my free time to write a new web-based software that you can use on your phone. This was super convenient because it allowed my boss, the sales team, and others to literally work while going around the warehouse or while working from home. Even the warehouse staff was impressed since I asked them what they need to see when picking orders. This software was now the heart of the company, and during my time I worked there, it was used a lot and replaced our old software. Now, my old boss was about to retire, and together with the new boss, we all met in the warehouse, had cake, and got to know the new boss, who I'll call Eric. He was super nice to everyone, but the next day, he showed his true colors. He completely changed our workflow, requested useless stuff from the sales team, added shifts, morning, day, and night, to our warehouse workers, and got rid of stuff that we barely sell. Within weeks, we were all exhausted. 3 people quit. Then Eric came into my office and gave me my 2 weeks notice. I was actually shocked. His response was, "We have 3 IT guys. We don't need that many." On my last day at work, Eric came into my office, looked around, and said, "Please make sure to reset your computer and delete any personal data." Now, there's one thing Eric doesn't know. The software always checks for a local file on my computer. So if the software can't find that file or the checksum is wrong, it'll display an error and shut down. I asked him again, "You sure you want me to delete every personal file from this computer?" His reply was, "Yes, within the next hour." Cue malicious compliance. I made sure to delete the whole source code of my software, deleted some personal stuff, cleaned my mail folder, and shortly before I was about to leave, I pressed delete on file required for the software. As soon as I left the building, I saw people standing outside having a smoke. While I walked to my car, a warehouse worker told me that the whole warehouse is on pause due to some server issues. I made sure to leave as fast as possible. 1 hour later, Eric blew up my phone, demanding the source code for my software. I happily told him that, per contract, the software is my property. My old boss even wrote a contract, and that he won't get the source code. He demanded I come into the office and fix everything. "I'm sorry, I don't work for you anymore. You wanted me to delete all personal data. The key for my software is also my own file, so I had to delete that too." I heard from some of my friends there that Eric had to buy a license for the old software, and within 3 weeks, he was replaced by another boss. Am I the jerk for refusing to forgive a debt that will cost my sister a house? My mother passed about 2 months ago. She didn't leave behind much other than a paid-for house worth about $180,000 and a little money in the bank. Mom announced a couple of years ago that she intended to leave her house to my sister, Sarah, who takes care of her severely disabled son full-time. Mom said that she wanted to make sure they had a roof over their heads and the rest of her kids could make it on their own. Sarah does struggle a lot and has said many times that she wouldn't have been able to make it without Mom. When Mom passed, she had some bills outstanding, but her biggest debt was that she owed me $37,000. I had loaned her the money so that she could fix her plumbing and septic system, as well as making the house more handicap-friendly for Sarah and Jeremy. Mom had been paying me back every month. I have paperwork proving the money is owed. Here's the problem. If I file a claim against her estate, like any other creditor would do, my brother John, Mom's executor, will have no choice but to pay it. But to do so, he will have to sell the house since there isn't money in the estate to pay it any other way. Which means that Sarah and Jeremy will have to find a different place to live. I know Mom wanted Sarah to have the house. There's also the issue that Mom's will said Sarah got the house, but any money in the estate would be split evenly between the 4 of us. So technically, we think that means Sarah wouldn't actually get anything. John is talking to a lawyer to make sure he's reading that right. Sarah is also concerned that if she did get a large amount of money, John and I have both said we would give her whatever we got from the house if it does get sold, that it could interfere with the help she gets from the government. John and Sarah are both pushing me to not file a claim against the estate, but if I don't, then the loan basically goes away. Sarah has said that she will pay it back to me and would even sign a new loan. The problem is that I don't believe her. She's borrowed money before and never paid it back. Not because she doesn't want to, but because she can't afford to. She struggled with money living with Mom, so it's going to be even worse for her without Mom paying bills in the house as well. If I don't file a claim, I'll be out $37,000, and that's far more than I want to hand over as a gift, even to my sister. I've told John and Sarah that I am officially filing a claim on Monday morning. They're both calling me a greedy jerk and telling me that I'm ignoring what Mom wanted. I think it's unreasonable to expect me to just forget $37,000. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk for a few reasons here. 1. You refuse to wait for your brother, the executor, to talk to an attorney, which is literally happening later in the week. 2. Several people have made outstanding points, like getting a new contract or a lien against the house. You absolutely will not hear out a single word of it, just repeatedly saying she will not pay and you'll never see the money. That's where contracts and liens come in. They're literally there to protect you. 3. You state you are quite financially stable right now and that you do not need this money right this second, but you're also unwilling to help find any workarounds for your sister and her multiple kids. You're happy to make her homeless. Am I the jerk for not paying for my stepdaughter's wedding? I, 49 male, will keep this as short as possible, but basically, my stepdaughter, who's 25, wants to marry her boyfriend who's also 25, which was fine and all. I had the money to pay for the wedding. What could possibly go wrong? Her father, who's 54, has never been in the picture her whole life. He was a deadbeat father. Never took care of his daughter, never paid child support according to my fiance anyway. My stepdaughter was never rude with me and always showed respect, so I always showed respect for her and bought all of her the necessities that she needed. Maybe too much. Now looking back, I'm an ATM. What was I thinking? Anyway, since I'm paying for a $200,000 wedding, I just asked for my mother and her 2 step-siblings to receive invitations since they are her siblings. My fiance and daughter were like, cool, we will. Now obviously this could be a mistake, but invitations come around. My stepdaughter informed me that she didn't want any kids at her wedding, but that seemed odd to me because my fiance's sister's kids were invited, so why weren't her own siblings invited? I asked her and she said it was just a mistake. Probably a red flag, but on we go. A few days later, my in-laws come over and they start questioning my daughter-in-law about who's going to walk her down the aisle. My daughter announced that it was going to be her deadbeat clown of a father. My fiance was in shock from her announcement, and my daughter kept going on and on about how they had been in touch and the fact that he's her true father, and at that point, I just lost it. I announced that her real father can pay for the wedding then. He can't, since I'm a check for my stepdaughter, and my stepdaughter started screaming at me and all of the guests left the house. My fiance wasn't too happy, stating I humiliated her in front of her in-laws, and the fact they spent a year planning. I said that I wasted $200,000 on an ungrateful brat. I may be the jerk for this, and spewed insults towards her father. As you can tell, I really don't like the guy. So, am I the jerk for this? Edit. I just want to clarify a few things. My stepdaughter had told me that I would walk her down the aisle, then proceeded to lie and humiliate me in front of the guests. Also, a few people asked why I laughed it off. Whenever I'm in a bad situation, I just like to laugh it off, like Spider-Man, I guess. Not the jerk. I can't believe it. $200,000 for a wedding? Insane. And for her to use you and string you along lying like that? Oh no. Am I the jerk for getting upset with my fiance over his girl best friend affecting our wedding plans? My fiance and I are getting married next year. I've had my eyes set on an extremely competitive venue in October. There's only one available day for us that works for my family, and it happens to fall on his girl best friend's birthday. There are several reasons as to why I'm dead set on October. I've always dreamed of a fall wedding. September is difficult for me because it's when my brother passed, and November doesn't really work with our family's travel schedules. My issue is more with how my fiance approached this issue of his friend's birthday and the potential wedding date overlapping rather than him not wanting those on the same day. Instead of asking me if there's any way we can compromise, which really there isn't, but I'd appreciate it, he went off on me saying that it's Veronica's birthday and I know that, and that I can't be upset when he puts off celebrating our anniversary for her birthday. It felt like he was accusing me of purposefully plotting to stop them from celebrating together. This died down a bit, and then when I was talking about the guest meals, I spoke with the planner, and she suggested that, to help with costs, the bride and groom will be served fish. I'm pescatarian, along with select family members who are also pescatarian, and everyone else will be served chicken. I have all the fish eaters together, so people don't get confused or offended by them being offered different, somewhat cheaper food. He then argued with me that Veronica loves fish, and I should put her down for fish as well. I told him I didn't want guests to be upset at her getting fish while sitting with other guests and them not having the option. If it was dietary, it would be different, but he says no, Veronica is a picky eater, and that's essentially the same as not eating chicken by choice for health and ethic reasons. It felt like I was walking on eggshells as we kept getting into fights about Veronica and our wedding. He told me that he was talking about our cake in a group chat of his, and she wanted him to suggest a different flavor combo to me, since she said a wedding she went to prior had the same and she didn't like it. I flipped out, just started screaming that it's our and my wedding, me and him. not hers. It's okay to have opinions, but hers literally do not matter this one singular time. He told me I was out of line and had a clear dislike for Veronica despite her trying to be helpful, and I'm bitter of their friendship. He left and hasn't told me where he's staying, and he won't be coming home until I admit fault and promise to be more accepting of his female friends. I honestly tried my best to be nice despite how rudely she treats me. She basically flat out ignores me. Our friends seem to not want to get involved. I expect them to have my back, and now I'm questioning if I'm crazy. And a jerk. Not the jerk. He's absolutely in love with her. End this relationship and get back what money you can. I don't know why he's not just with her, but you will never be more important than her, especially if he's willing to celebrate her birthday over your wedding anniversary. Girl, cut your losses, pack up and leave, or pack his stuff up and go no contact. He's using you and trying to control you, and you deserve better. My Karen stepdaughter is demanding my Lotto winnings. To give some context, my estranged stepdaughter is 22. My significant other and I haven't seen her in 9 years. When she was 11, a bunch of drama went down, all based on lies. We knew her mom was behind this because we had 50-50 custody, but had been paying her child support like we only had stepdaughter every other weekend. After we had a few kids, significant other applied, and she had to end up paying him child support. Fighting the court battles that proceeded cost almost 6 figures in legal fees over the next 2 years, and I had to end up selling my house, which was my great-grandparents'. Selling my house meant I wasn't able to care for my ailing father. At a therapy appointment, stepdaughter told my significant other she would keep telling lies if he kept trying to take her from her mom. So he said, okay, contact him when she wants to have a relationship. The mom got what she wanted, child support until stepdaughter was 18. We were all devastated. Significant other sent her birthday and Christmas presents, cards and texts, but they moved and we didn't know where and they changed their numbers. Fast forward to now. 5 months ago, I won the Lotto. Significant other and I aren't married and we have separate finances due to him being bad with money and me entering the relationship with more assets and then having to sell my house for stepdaughter's court battle. But I still take significant other's feelings into consideration with money. The money was a significant sum, but not rolling in money. Enough to put a good deposit on a house, deposits on cars, pay off debts, and put money into the kids' education, but still have mortgage, car payments, and bills. It's enough to set us up for life as long as we still work full-time. If we're smart with it, we might be able to retire early. We hadn't heard from stepdaughter or her mom in 9 years, apart from a message when a child support payment was 2 days late because significant other changed jobs. A week ago, stepdaughter reached out to significant other over text, a couple of pleasantry texts, and then she said she heard we won the Lotto and was surprised we hadn't contacted her yet to help provide for her. After a bit of awkward stepping around the topic, she brought it back up that she expects a deposit for a house for her and her mom. I said absolutely not. Not only would that be as much or more than what our own kids would get, but I've already wasted a whole house on her and almost lost my family and life. I don't want to give her a cent and I want nothing to do with her. I admit I still resent her and everything I had to sacrifice for her lies. My significant other agrees a house deposit is out of the question, but his mom and sister got angry at him and now he thinks maybe we should give her a little bit. It wouldn't break the bank, but why would I give someone I don't like money when it could be used on our family and those I love? My significant other's mom and sister are saying I'm a jerk for not giving my estranged stepdaughter money. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She wanted to tell lies to stay with her mom? Perfect. You are not part of her family, so you don't owe her anything. I'll still have my job long after you're gone, fool. I was working at a horrible postal station. Had a piece of rolling equipment get caught in a piece of broken tile and pop up, then onto my toe. Shattered the toenail. I was lucky not to have a broken toe from it, too. So I'm on light duty, which meant I had to work the service window where people come to pick up packages, signature required mail, fill out change of address and hold mail forms, stuff like that. Remember, I have a foot injury. This means that getting around is not easy for me. Have a customer come in about an hour before closing, hands over 2 pick up your mail forms for certified letters. Y'all probably don't realize this, but in big city facilities, we don't have your certified mail sitting in a gold case all by itself, and postal workers staring wistfully at it wondering when we'll see you. No, we have your mail sorted out by the last number of your street address in trays with hundreds of other certified letters just like yours. This means it can take a while to find your mail when you finally drag yourself in to pick it up. So I go looking for those 2 letters. It was a recent enough thing that I checked the stand-up cubby we had for the latest certified to pickups. Not there. So I hobbled to the longer-term storage area, about 10 feet from the door. I finally find both letters and go to the window. The customer tells me that he wants to talk to the postmaster because I took 3 minutes to get his mail, and that was unacceptable. I tried to convince him to get the party more likely to be on the premises to handle his complaint, a supervisor. But nope, he's adamant about speaking to the postmaster. Hint, people, the later in the day it is, the less likely the postmaster will be there. But okay, you want the postmaster? You get the postmaster. I smile and tell him, sure, I'll go get him now. And I shut the Dutch door, with his mail still in my hand. You thought 3 minutes was a long wait? Ha, you just activated a union worker trap card, bub. Now I did go to the postmaster's office first, but as usual, he wasn't in there. Still, I made a good faith effort to look there. I didn't see him on the floor either, so I checked the dock, conveniently getting in a smoke while I was out there. Nasty former habit. I checked the break room and got and drank a soda while I was there. Knocked on the men's room door. No answer. Oops, that soda just worked its way through me. Need to use the ladies now. I was about to check the parking lot to see if his car was even there. Oh look, there's the postmaster, coming back from an off-site meeting. I take the time to bring him up to speed on the customer's complaint. This guy knew me and smiled. How long have you been keeping him waiting now? I think it's been 20 to 25 minutes. You can deal with him while I handle the paperwork. This will be fun. You're lucky I like you because you're a hard worker though. The customer was absolutely livid when the door finally opened again. He demanded that I be fired right then and there, as if that's how it works in a union job. My boss, to his credit, chewed out the customer for being such a jerk to an injured employee who had actually done a great job in taking only 3 minutes to find 2 letters amongst hundreds in 2 separate locations. He even took one of the trays over to the ledge, slammed it down, and said, "See how long it would take you to go through this to find not 1, but 2 letters, and then tell me 3 minutes is too long." Lesson to be learned. Union workers don't have to take crap off of dirtbags, and we won't. So spare yourself a whole lot of grief and chill out. It's only mail for crying out loud. My girlfriend wants to go on a trip with a male friend, despite me not being comfortable with it. I met my current girlfriend in our freshman year at college. We hit it off almost immediately and became pretty fast friends. After being friends for a while, I asked her out, and we've been together ever since, coming up on our 2-year anniversary in October. Recently, however, she and I have been fighting over a proposed trip she intends to go on at the end of this month. She has a friend who we'll call Paul, because that's his name and I don't care enough to censor it. I was always aware of him since he lives in her dorm and we've hung out a couple of times. But in the Venn diagram of our friend group, he's always been very firmly in her circle area. I've also always believed that he has feelings for her from only knowing him for a few months. They've always spent an inordinate amount of time together, even more than most of her other friends, and often more than I get to see her in a week. He's also made occasional inappropriate remarks about her, which I won't get into here. I've brought this up to my girlfriend multiple times, but she insists he just sees her as a friend. And while I think she's incorrect, I don't think she's being dishonest. I trust that she has absolutely no interest in him that way, and so I'm mostly okay with their friendship. At this point, it's honestly kind of a joke between us. Well, things between us have soured over Paul in the last week or so. His birthday's coming up soon, and he asked her to go on a trip with him to LA, which is on the opposite side of the country from us. She mentioned the plans in a kind of offhanded manner, and when I said I wouldn't be comfortable with that, she and I got into an awful argument about it. As it turns out, he paid for the trip, including plane tickets, before asking her, and when he asked her, she already agreed to go. I asked her not to go and said I'd find it incredibly inappropriate and hurtful, especially since he only booked 1 room for both of them. She said I was being hurtful to her friend and would really hurt their relationship. She also says that I was being controlling and accused me of not trusting her. There's a lot more details, but I don't really want to go into them in this post. What should I do, Reddit? I want her to be able to enjoy the last of her summer break, but I'm just not comfortable with this situation. Would it be too unreasonable to ask to go with them? I personally would walk away. She is willfully ignorant, thinking Paul has her best interest at heart. He actively makes inappropriate jokes about her and clearly has feelings for her. I don't care about friends of the opposite gender, but this is a hard pass for me as a person. She wouldn't like it if a girl was talking about your physical features and then off you go to a faraway state, one-on-one for a birthday celebration. He doesn't respect boundaries and he sounds creepy. Hopefully, he doesn't do anything unsafe. I would bring up these points again, and if she dismisses them, then that's your sign. Update. So, we split up. I was with her pretty much all night tonight and only just got home. And yeah, we're done. It was ugly. There was a lot of crying. Now, I know some of you might have questions about why I did it. To explain it, I need a metaphor. Have you heard the parable about a boiling frog, where you slowly turn up the heat on a frog in a pot so it doesn't realize it's being cooked alive? Well, if you gave the frog a thermometer, it might suddenly realize that it was being boiled and hop out. That's what my post on here was. It wasn't until I was reading through and considering responding to some of the comments I got that I realized how big the problems in my relationship were, because they had started small and built up over the course of literal years. I decided that whether or not my girlfriend decided to go was ultimately inconsequential. The truth was, this was never about the trip. This was about my girlfriend's treatment of me. The truth was, I trusted her on the trip. Deep down, with every fiber of my being, I trusted that she was sincere in her denials of their situation. I do not believe she would have done anything, but I don't think it matters. The simple fact is, she had been consistently downplaying and disregarding my feelings for years, all the while defending Paul, who had been manipulating her and several of our other friends. I could go into why I think this is, the desire to be a hero, etc., but none of it matters. She had dismissed my feelings out of hand and was willing to hurt me and belittle me in defense of Paul's behaviors, which she ultimately admitted were sketchy and manipulative. That's just a cold hard fact. Those aren't traits I want in a partner, and now I don't have to worry about that. As for me, I feel like my world just ended. I'd love if someone could give me some advice on how to handle this. I've never had a breakup this painful before. I'm also having serious regrets. Please let me know what y'all think. Right now, I'm going to get plastered and go to sleep and hope somehow my life is bearable in the morning. Good night, Reddit. You're a great example of learning to set boundaries and gaining self-worth. Props to you, brother. It's going to hurt for a long time, but time will eventually drain that cold pain in your chest, and it will fill with boiling courage and independence. Worst thing you can do is relapse and run back to her. Keep your eyes on the path ahead and get excited that the girl that respects you is closer than you think. P.S. I've gone to the ER for heartbreak, it hurt so bad, but I'm giving you advice because I empathize. OP. Right now, it's not even grief. I'm sure that'll come later, but that's not what I'm feeling. I just feel cold. Not angry, not sad, just cold. I keep thinking about how much pain she's in, and I know that I caused it because I wasn't happy. It all seems so selfish, but I know I have to put the oxygen mask on myself or whatever. She cried a lot, asked me how I could do this to us, to her, told me we could fix this, that I had never given her a sign, etc. Yeah, she's blocked right now. I just don't want to see those messages at the moment. I don't know how long we can keep it up though. We have a lot of the same friends and move in the same social circles. Update. It was rough for a while. I'm not going to lie, it still is. I didn't realize how many parts of my life she had touched until all of them started aching, and now I'm having to deal with the lingering pain of all the things I don't share with her anymore. I've had good days and bad days, but the good ones generally outweigh the bad. Our friend group split up right along with us. There were a couple of ugly fights, and I lost a few good friends, but I take a sort of tragic pride in the knowledge that I kept most of our friends in my life. I'm very glad that they've been so supportive of me right now. In unrelated but important news, important to me at least, I had to put my cat down last week as well, and I'm just generally not having a good time. But this week is a lot better than the last one, so things are trending up. I went back to the gym for the first time in literal years, so it's been nice. Still getting back into the swing of things and trying to get comfortable in a new gym, which takes some getting used to. I've been taking care of myself in other ways, listening to a lot of sad music, starting up a D&D game, and just generally taking it easy. I might even try a bit of writing again. Don't know if this is the kind of update you're looking for, but it's what's been going on. Update. OP has confirmed the trip did not go ahead. X has had a falling out with Paul and is now remorseful. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex? Please let us know. When you have strong boundaries that your partner is not willing to respect, it's time for both of you to find a new partner. Am I the jerk for buying a $50,000 guitar for $4,000 and refusing to sell it back when the buyer found out the real value? This happened a while back. My wife and I still talk about it every once in a while. She's on my side and most of our friends and family are. However, when it happened, it was like WW3 between us and her coworkers and others. Here we go. I've been playing the guitar for 22 years. I know guitar values and whatnot very well. I'm very into the guitar market. At my wife's old company, she was hanging out with coworkers one day after work, and she mentioned that I play guitar. A coworker, who I guess is very popular at work, said that his dad passed recently and he was selling his dad's things. His dad had a guitar, and he asked my wife if I'd be interested in it. My wife texted me and said to have him send me the info of the guitar and the price. The next day, he texted me the pics and the price. It was a 1952 Telecaster in mint condition. He had the original receipts, which was crazy. That's how I know the date. I asked what he wanted for it, and he said he looked up Telecasters online and he thinks $4,000 is fair. I texted back, I'll take it for $4,000, and we went to pick it up. The guitar had no sentimental value to him at all. Here's the issue at hand. The guitar was, and is, worth approximately $50,000 depending on the buyer, and I knew it. When I got the guitar, I told my wife the price and what it was worth. She was floored. Fast forward 2 weeks, her coworker tells my wife he just found out what the guitar was actually worth from a family friend and he wanted it back. She said, well, he really likes the guitar and he knew that it was worth $50,000, which is why he was floored when you offered it to him for $4,000. He really likes it and I doubt he'll sell it back to you, but you can ask. Probably not the smartest thing for her to say, but she was caught off guard and it's not her fault or problem. He contacted me and asked to buy it back. I said that it's not for sale. He then said I scammed him and he was going to sue me and take my wife to HR for being a part of the scam, which was nuts, but he actually did contact HR. They were cool about it and said it's not their problem. It's between him and me. Over the next few months, he made things very uncomfortable for my wife at work. He would bug her constantly about it. She eventually had to go to HR for harassment and they actually let him go. She complained twice and he was warned but didn't stop. He's contacted me several times about it, so I got a restraining order for harassment too. I blocked him too. I haven't heard from him in about a year. Am I the jerk? Update. Just to clear up some things. I left some things out because I didn't want to influence anyone's opinion, and I really wanted it to be about me buying a guitar at a significantly lower market value versus the people in the story. I did include the fact the guy was harassing my wife at work, not to make the guy sound bad, but because I thought it was relevant to the story. Here's some specific details I chose to not include. The guy and his dad were not close at all. So these people saying that he was grieving and I took advantage of him, that's 100% not the case. When I went to get the guitar, he was telling me he hadn't talked to his dad in 6 years and was actually annoyed he had to deal with a funeral. The dad bought the guitar new and never played it. Luckily, it was stored in a closet and not in a basement or attic. There's no issue with the wood or electronics. It plays like a dream and I couldn't be happier. I'm not selling the guitar to the son or anyone. It will be with me for a long time. I'm in my 30s, so maybe in 30 years it will find a new home. I would have maybe considered giving the guy more money or giving him one of my guitars to sell on his own, but I decided not to do that after he left a terrible voicemail on my phone the day he found out the real value. He demanded it back like he was entitled to an object he sold fair and square, called me names, called my wife names, and said he would do bad things if I didn't sell him the guitar back. And to those people who say they would have told the guy the real value, that's a load of BS. If you went to a garage sale or estate sale and saw an item worth $5,000 priced at $50, there's not a chance that you would walk up to the homeowner and tell them that they mispriced it. You'd buy the item and then tell all your friends and family what a great score you got. Don't even kid yourself like you wouldn't do that. I don't feel bad about buying an awesome guitar at a steal of a price. I was curious what others would think, and it looks like I'm not the jerk, so thank you, Reddit. I can play the guitar with zero guilt now, not like I felt guilty before, but now my feelings are justified. The seller claimed to have checked value and priced it accordingly. Buyers don't usually negotiate up. Am I the jerk for saying my wife will have to quit her job if we get kicked out of another daycare? My wife and I have a 3-year-old daughter, Alex. Both of us work, and Alex has attended daycare since she was 1. In the 2 years since, we've been asked to leave 2 programs because my wife is a micromanager. I admit both of us went into the first program not really understanding daycare. I quickly learned that they can't provide personalized care, and after learning from her teachers, I reset my expectations. My wife, however, has a lot of anxiety and worries about our daughter. She hates when she gets even a little upset. She's in therapy and is working on it. First program, my wife would constantly watch the live feed and call the daycare multiple times a day. We had several talks about it, and the school talked to us twice. My wife ended up screaming at one of the teachers and then the director. We were terminated immediately. Second daycare was a little better because my wife began therapy, but my wife was still so nervous and had a complaint every single day. These were not important things, small things, like she saw another kid took a toy from Alex and she would cry. The teacher would give the toy back to Alex, but my wife didn't understand why the other kid wasn't punished for it. This daycare didn't kick us out, but did eventually suggest that this may not be the best program for us. My wife and I decided to pull Alex out. My wife, because of her anxiety, myself, because I knew my wife has burned bridges and was becoming one of those moms. We chose a smaller home daycare this time, as we couldn't afford another center. The woman who owns it is very nice, but also firm. She stands by her boundaries and won't let my wife break any rules, whereas the centers were definitely more accommodating. My wife would take any inch she got. This time, she doesn't get that opportunity. I thought all was well, as the owner only speaks to my wife for the most part. Then I get put in a group text saying my wife has been bombarding the owner with texts every day, despite the owner saying she will text her at lunch when things are settled. She said at this point she will only be responding at specific times of the day and not looking at the rest. The owner then added several pages of the contract with passages highlighted, reminding us of certain policies my wife had violated. I was ticked. When Alex went to bed that night, my wife and I talked. I said this was our last option for daycare. The other centers are too expensive, and this was the only home daycare in the area that we like. A nanny is not in our budget. My wife made a million excuses, including that it's not her fault she's anxious. I said if we are asked to leave this program too, she will be the one quitting her job to watch Alex, not me. This upset my wife. I pointed out I've spoken to her kindly about this plenty of times. I encouraged her to keep up her therapy, but she can't keep getting us kicked out of programs. My wife is now not speaking to me. Am I the jerk? Edit. I cannot be the primary contact for daycare due to not being able to have my phone on me at work. Not the jerk. To keep it 100% honest with you, 20 years down the line, your daughter most likely will have decided to not be part of your lives. Your wife is the exact definition of a toxic helicopter parent. She's going to not only ruin your life, already in that process, your daughter's life in the future, and her own life as well. Exactly. OP's wife isn't just a helicopter parent, but a steamroller. She will steamroll any and all challenges their daughter will ever face, making sure that their daughter is either terrified of the world or completely incapable of dealing with any kind of disappointment or challenge or both. OP needs to do something now if he wants a relationship with his daughter and make sure his daughter doesn't inherit his wife's crippling anxiety. Am I the jerk for finally telling my mother-in-law that her mac and cheese tastes terrible? My husband, 30 male, and I, 28 female, have been married for 2 years, together for 5 years, and currently 6 months pregnant. We are very excited and blessed because I've had some complications in getting pregnant. I have a very good relationship with my in-laws, and if any of us ever had a problem, we're able to talk it through. Except for one thing. My mother-in-law has her famous mac and cheese that everyone in her family absolutely loves. I, however, find it disgusting on day one, but I didn't want to come off as rude and ungrateful, so I pulled through it without saying anything. I told my husband about it, and he said that his mother has been making it for decades, perfecting the recipe, and she would be deeply offended if anyone told her anything bad about her mac and cheese, so I should just find the right moment to tell her. He, for some reason, loves it, so he didn't want to be the one to tell her, which I totally understand because it is my issue and I had to deal with it. It's been almost 2 years of me pretending. So 2 days ago, I decided to just tell her. It was a family dinner where my husband's parents had invited us over, and of course his mother was making her so-called famous mac and cheese. I almost threw up at the smell of it, and I couldn't bear the thought of eating it, probably because I was pregnant. So at dinner, when I was offered the mac and cheese, I politely declined and said, "No thank you." My mother-in-law looked at me and asked, "Why? You should eat. Good for the baby." And I just went right out with it. "I'm sorry, but I don't like your mac and cheese. Everything else tastes delicious, but this is the one thing I simply cannot eat anymore." She looked so deeply offended, and she literally snapped, "Well, thanks for being honest," and didn't even look at me or speak to me for the rest of the evening. My husband was on my side and tried to speak to his mother, but all I know is that it didn't work because she's been cold to me ever since. What was wrong with the mac and cheese? Her perfecting the recipe ended up with this result: mac and cheese combined with salmon, kimchi, pineapple, seaweed salad, collard greens, onions, and garlic. I don't have a problem with the greens or onion, but the rest tastes so disgustingly wrong with mac and cheese. However, the reason why I think I might have been the jerk is because, like my husband said, she's been perfecting this recipe for years. Her entire family clearly loves it, and I tell her that her perfected and loved mac and cheese is terrible. Am I the jerk? Edit. I did tell her that because I'm pregnant, it wasn't possible for me to stomach the ingredients, but she still doesn't want to talk to me. I'm French, and my husband's family is Korean, so that will explain the ingredients. I do enjoy salmon, kimchi, and seaweed salads, but it greatly depends on which dishes it's served with. And since I've been pregnant, I've even developed an aversion to several foods that I used to love. Not the jerk a million times over. That thing that she makes is not mac and cheese. It barely qualifies as food. What it is a crime against humanity that she should be jailed for. You lost me with the salmon and kimchi and the mac and cheese. You get not the jerk for standing up against crimes against cuisine. Not the jerk. When she first asked, you said no thank you. You didn't insult her and you just said you weren't interested. That was short, crisp, and to the point. She wanted to know why, so you told her after she asked. Good for you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or mother-in-law? Please let us know. I honestly think it sounds delicious. My mouth is watering right now, but I'll admit I eat some pretty interesting things. Today I messed up by realizing I destroyed an art piece in a gallery 10 years ago. While this event happened 10 years ago, I literally just realized an hour ago what I actually did. In 2014, I was just completing my master's degree in design. Now, the way the degree was set up, it was one course of 40 people, but we were all doing different areas. Dance, architecture, sculptures, textiles, everything and anything. We'd have lectures together and present the progress on our projects every couple of months. So end of year comes around and we start setting up our final gallery show. The space we were using was the first year art students' workshop, which we cleared out and prepped and painted fresh. When I arrived to do my part, one wall was a mess. It had like 100 holes all over it. I was upset that a first year did this to a structural wall and grabbed a sandpaper, filler, and paint to fix it. The show went ahead fine with a warning, wet paint sign in that section. I think you can tell where this is going. You know how your brain suddenly reminds you of things out of nowhere? Like, uh-oh, my laundry, or, I forgot to pay that bill. Well, I'm set in bed today, and suddenly I realize, uh-oh, that was Anna's master degree piece. You see, Anna was a part-time, mature student on different hours to the rest of us. We saw one presentation of her work, which was about making repeated holes and cuts into paper and card. I never thought about it much again. She must have come in before the rest of us, created the wall piece for the show, and left. And I'd gone and filled it and painted it away. To be fair, she never left any note or name on the piece. I don't even know if she knew what happened to it, since it's not like she would need to come back to collect it after the show, since it was, a wall. If she did, I hope she saw humor in it and added it to the piece's story. Humans crave to repair damage, etc. Either way, I'm now silently cringing and may need to repent to the art gods, lest karma strike me. Edit. We had already presented our work for grading before the show, so I didn't affect her grades at all. By structural wall, I really meant a permanent outer wall of the room, rather than a temporary one built for hanging work in the show that is removed later. Why did I repair a random wall? When you put on an art show, often you start with a grotty space that needs clearing up first. We had 3 days to clear out the junk, scrub the floors, repair damage, build temporary gallery walls, paint everything white, hang work and lighting, and clear up any construction mess. We all turned up whenever we had time to pitch in before the show. Am I the jerk for sleeping in the guest bedroom after my husband continues to take showers at 3 a.m. with loud music? My husband has started working night shifts, 8 p.m. to 3 a.m., over 2 months ago, and has since been using our en-suite bathroom for showers after work. This would have been okay, but he plays loud music through the Bluetooth speakers and claims he needs it to wind down. I've asked him repeatedly to use the shower downstairs and have even set it up for him with the same products he has in our en-suite. I've been using the bathroom downstairs every morning so I don't disturb him while getting ready for work, but he refuses to do the same. Since I'm a light sleeper, and after being sleep deprived for so long, I decided to sleep in the guest bedroom yesterday. He claims I'm being petty and should talk to him about this as opposed to sleeping in the guest room. The thing is, I've tried talking to him about it, but I usually don't bring up the discussion when it's happening and prefer to do it the next day after work, so I'm not upset and can have a rational discussion. He's been going around telling our family and friends, and they all think I'm being petty. I'm not sure if I'm doing something wrong or how else to go about dealing with this situation. I need to know if I'm the jerk. What is he telling friends and family that they're on his side? I haven't gotten the whole story to be honest, but they're all focusing on me not sleeping in our bedroom. Apparently, this turns it into an argument or a fight. I've gotten messages from a couple of mutual friends and family members, but haven't responded yet. Is this new behavior? The funny thing is, he used to be really quiet and considerate in the mornings when he started work earlier than me. I don't know why he's having difficulties replicating after work. Does he usually run to his friends and family with things like this? There's only been a couple of instances, 2 that I can think of, when he has discussed things with his family and friends. I guess that's what he uses as an outlet. I do this too with people I identify as my support system, to get advice and let my feelings out. That being said, no one has ever confronted or made direct comments to him. Fortunately, he's really considerate in general. This is the first time that he's acted like this. I initially thought he was acting out because he's a morning person and is rarely up at that hour by choice. His family usually tends to side with him, but I have a feeling our friends don't know the whole story. I haven't responded to their messages yet. I like some part of my life to be private. I do see the irony in saying this after posting on Reddit for everyone to judge. Update. I started the morning at 5:30 with a quick run on the treadmill. Our home gym is right next to our bedroom. Thanks for the idea. This poor guy woke up and practically ran into the room thinking someone was trying to break in. He looked terrified. He was confused and concerned as opposed to angry when he was questioning what I'm doing and if everything is okay. I told him I'm too tired due to lack of sleep and didn't want to drive to my spin class. I thought it's a good idea to have a quick workout at home to wake me up and stimulate endorphins. Either he was stunned into silence or was too tired to put up a fight. It took him a while to ask how long I planned on working out for. I said 45 minutes and didn't catch the response he mumbled as he was leaving. I finished my workout at 6:15 and had a smoothie hoping he'd fall asleep, if he hadn't already, before hopping into the shower and carrying out phase 2. With doors locked and the volume set to what he usually uses, I put on my playlist to work. I now realize that you can't really hear the music with the speakers outside the shower unless the volume is relatively high. 30 seconds in, the first song plays, Awakened by Death Clock. I hear him knocking on the door. I figured I could use the music and shower as an excuse to claim I didn't hear it. This increased to banging, calling out to me by the second song, and by the third one, there was complete silence. I think he only stuck around for so long since heating up another room might have taken a while. Thanks everyone for the music suggestions. I wish he had stayed for the whole playlist. By the time I'm out of the shower, our bedroom is empty. I find him watching TV downstairs. He asked me why I would do this when he's just finished a long shift and hasn't had any sleep. Told him I thought it was acceptable since he does the same thing. Like most commenters pointed out, the whole situation shows lack of care, and I was curious why he doesn't care and what caused him to change so drastically, because he usually isn't like this. After a lot of pushing, he finally admits that he likes our conversations after work and figured if I was up, we would talk. I don't understand how this is the thought process of a grown man. He claims he didn't realize it was an issue for me because I haven't been as angry about it. Here I was thinking the situation required patience and understanding. I also realized he's still grieving his grandmother's passing. She passed in April. They used to talk on a daily basis, and he hasn't fully accepted the loss and proceeded in a healthy manner. He's open to the idea of getting therapy to process it. I don't think this excuses his behavior, but it does explain a lot. Getting back to the showering at 3 a.m., we've agreed on the following. He will use the shower downstairs after working night shifts. If he wants to use our shared bathroom, it has a jacuzzi, he will text me before I go to bed and I'll sleep in the guest bedroom. I realized I was pretty much doing this to myself after the first week. I've learned that I don't owe anyone comfort at the expense of my own well-being, and I shouldn't have let it go on for so long. Yes, he's immature and childish, but I'm hoping we can work on it together. Like I mentioned in the comments, he's been very considerate and loving, except for a few isolated incidents, less than 5, during the 7 years I've known him. I don't think it's reasonable to expect someone to be perfect 100% of the time. I feel the need to point out that no one should use this statement to stay in an unhappy relationship. Am I the jerk for telling my parents they should just get a divorce? I, 16 male, have parents that really need to just get divorced. My dad has cheated on my mom in the past while she was pregnant. My mom didn't want a divorce because she didn't want us to come from a broken home. My mom used to be a family therapist. She thinks divorce has a negative effect on the kids, so they decided to reconcile and stay in the marriage for the kids. That's not going well. My mom quit her job and took a low-paying teacher's job to focus more on the house. As far as I know, they went to counseling and tried to work on their marriage, but I can see there's still tension between them. From the outside, they look like a happy couple, but they just ignore each other at home. My dad didn't stop cheating. This is like a cycle. My dad gets caught cheating, he begs my mom to give him another chance. Mom forgives him, and he stays good for a few days before going back to his old habits. Each time I can see the life draining from my mom's eyes. I can see she is exhausted too. It hasn't been easy for me either. I dreaded coming home. I joined a summer program just to get away from home. My mom and dad tried to be civil, but my mom obviously lost all feelings for dad. She just doesn't care if he comes home late at night or not. My sister is suffering from it as well. She grew up around all of this. I tried to get help from my school's counselor, but it was a dead end. Last week, my mom and dad were fighting. My mom was having an affair with a teacher at her school. My dad got furious. My mom called him names, called him a hypocrite, and told him the only reason she is in this marriage is for the kids. I yelled, "Then just get a divorce." My mom and dad were a bit shocked because normally I don't scream. My mom called me ungrateful that she has sacrificed so much to keep this family together. I told her, "How is that going? Clearly you both have failed at it. Just get a divorce and leave me and my sister out of this toxic home." My dad grounded me. He canceled my trip for November as a result and also cut off my allowance. The only reason I have my laptop is for my school. Did I say something wrong? Update. So a miracle happened. My mom came to my room and talked to me. It was a few hours after I posted. She was way more calm than she usually is. She asked me if I really wanted the divorce to happen. I told her my side. I told her my experience of seeing them being hateful towards each other, seeing her suffer because my dad won't stop cheating. I knew dad was a jerk, but I was more angry with her for not leaving when she had the chance. How can she think that this is a good thing for us? She never cared how I thought of dad when I learned he was cheating. I dreaded seeing her suffer, and I'm afraid that I'm never going to get married in the future because of watching them. I always wondered why they are even together if they don't love each other. I was a kid, sure, but I wasn't an idiot. My mom cried. She told me there were several times she thought about leaving, but couldn't because she thought she was doing the wrong thing and it would make me and my sister suffer. When she started her affair, she was slowly sorting things out for her. She has been planning her exit since then. She had already contacted a divorce lawyer and drafted the papers, and she was going to serve my dad later, but her affair got exposed. She wanted the divorce to be amicable, but now it seems it's not possible because my dad is refusing to divorce her. I told her it will be better if me and my sister live with our uncle for a while. She admitted that's a good choice. I hugged her, and she called my uncle the next morning. Me and my sister left with him. My mom also left the house, leaving my dad alone. My dad tried to argue that she can't leave him, but since my uncle was there, he couldn't do much. My mom told me and my sister that she will call and she is staying with a friend of hers. I think this time she will go through with the divorce. I don't care who cheats on whom. I just wish all of this to end. I may come back once my parents get a divorce. Better to grow up in 2 happy homes than 1 broken home. Genuinely can't understand how a family therapist thought staying together for the kids would be better. My new Karen neighbor won't let me do my job. So my grandparents live in a gated community. It's kind of expensive, so people who live there can be kind of jerks, but nothing as bad as in this story. So I went over to my grandparents one weekend, and my grandmother asks me if I could go help the neighbor's kid with a school project. It was about 8 at night, but I can never say no to this woman. I went over, ready to do some work, when entitled neighbor answers the door. Karen, you must be the neighbor's grandson. Thanks for coming by so late. Me, yeah, it's cool. Where's your son? He's over there by the computer. He already has the research done. He just needs help making the presentation. I think to myself, wow, this'll be easy. I introduced myself to the kid. He's about 12, and overall, he was a nice kid, if not a little nervous. As we're doing the project, entitled neighbor is standing by the counter watching over us and commenting on the work. Karen, could you make that picture bigger, please? We want to make sure the class sees it. Same with the words. Me, yeah, sure, no problem. I make the pictures a bit bigger and more central and make the words look more like commentary. She chimes in again, a bit ruder. Bigger. We have to make sure the people in the back can see it. Me, but if we make it bigger, we won't be able to fit the words and pictures on one slide. That's fine. Just make them bigger. Me, okay, tell me when. I start slowly making the font bigger until one of them tells me to stop. She doesn't tell me to stop till I get up to 48, and even then, the words are barely fitting on the slide. Entitled Mom. Perfect. Now, just do all the slides like that, and we'll be done in a jiffy. We weren't gonna be. Every time I tried to help this kid make his presentation look better, even when he tried to make it look better, she had to interject. It was always, "Make this bigger. I can't see that from here. Take that off. It looks tacky." This went on for 2 hours. Finally, we finish. Karen's kid. "This looks great. Thanks so much. I can't wait to show this off in class." That's when I noticed that the presentation is 36 slides long. There was absolutely no way he was going to be allowed to present something this long in a classroom. I told him as much, and I said the same to his mother. Karen, "No, I think it looks perfect. I'm sure the teacher won't mind his being a little extra long." Me, "But he could seriously lose points if he doesn't shorten it, or worse, doesn't present." Karen's kid, "I mean, we can shorten some of the less big stuff." "Fine, if you think it'll get him a better grade, but it's on you if he fails." I was a bit annoyed at that comment, but at least I made some progress. We managed to bring the slides down from 36 to 28, at which point it was hard to compress stuff without deleting sections outright. Now, some of you are probably saying, "Goodness, 28 slides for a 12-year-old? That's a lot for a teacher to assign." I do agree, but this story takes place in late January, so I figured it was one of those Christmas break projects that were really long. When I finally take a look at his rubric for the project, I saw something horrible. The assignment called for 8 to 10 slides. I was so upset because we now had to cut out so much. I go to the mother to talk about it. Me, "Hey, so the project calls for 8 to 10 slides, so we're gonna have to cut some stuff out." "No, my child spent hours getting that research, and all of it is going to be in the presentation." Me, "But the teacher will never let him actually present that in class. It's too long." Entitled mom, slightly more annoyed. "I thought you were working for so long to fix that problem." Me, "That was before I knew it was originally 4 times as long as the maximum." "Whatever, it's better to go over than under anyways. If he's done with the presentation, you can leave." At this point, it was almost 11 at night, and I just didn't have the energy to deal with it anymore. I wasn't even getting paid for this. The most I got was some hot chocolate. It tasted horrible, by the way. About a week and a half goes by, and my grandmother calls me, saying she just got off the phone with her neighbor. Apparently, her kid got a terrible grade on the project, and it was all my fault. I caught up with the kid a while later. He got a B-. I told her the situation, and she hangs up to talk to the lady. When she calls back, she says that the lady did confirm that's what happened, but still says it's my fault. Needless to say, I was not asked, nor did I ever offer to help her again. This kid's mother is an idiot. Not your fault, you tried to help, but she has too big of an ego. Lesson learned, if you go to help someone, but for some reason they don't let you help, walk away. Rude Karen demands to eat my food, gets taught a lesson. I, 24 male, live with my flatmate Tommy, who's 25. A few weeks ago, Tommy asked if his girlfriend Bella, who's 26, could stay with us for 2 weeks. She's moving apartments and has time between leases. I begrudgingly agreed on the condition that she won't bother me for anything. I do not like Bella, mainly because she constantly picks fights with Tommy over dumb things. I also find her to be entitled, lacking empathy, and having "I'm the main character" energy. She's entertaining, but I think she's unpleasant to be around overall. So this morning was her first morning of living with us. I'm in the kitchen making my breakfast. Bella comes out, goes through our fridge, and pulls out my fruit and my Greek yogurt. I notice and tell her that both of these are mine, and she can eat from Tommy's groceries, which are all on the left side of the fridge. She then tells me, "But Tommy doesn't have fruit." I tell her there's a grocery store across the street. For some background, I plan out everything I eat each week, gym bro style. Unless my girlfriend wants to go out, I'll eat every meal at home. I also hate wasting food. I go grocery shopping once a week, and I buy exactly what I know will be eaten in 1 week. No more, no less. Most weeks, I cook for my girlfriend and/or get her snacks and plan my groceries accordingly. But this week, she's out of town visiting family, and I have no food to spare. I'm cutting right now and will fall asleep hungry and cranky if I miss a single snack. That's why I'm unwilling to share. Anyways, Bella said that I'm being stingy and selfish and a bad host. I told her she isn't my guest. I'm letting her stay with us as a favor to Tommy, but I'd prefer if she wasn't here. She told me that this is why I'm single. She doesn't know that I have a girlfriend because she doesn't bother asking about my life, and I'm happy to not share. I told her I'd rather stay single than date someone like her, and she's lucky Tommy puts up with her. She went running to Tommy, demanding he make me apologize. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and I think you already know that. She can control and manipulate her boyfriend, but not you. If she takes any more food from you, bill her with interest. OP. The main reason I feel bad is that this is probably gonna rebound to Tommy. He apologized on her behalf and said that if he were me, he'd stand his ground without apologizing for anything. But he also said it would make his life easier if I did, which I already knew. Not the jerk. She's not your girlfriend or your responsibility. You told her right. If she wants fruit, the store's around the corner. It sounds like she isn't used to hearing the word no. Not the jerk. You have no obligation to make Tommy's life easier by letting his girlfriend walk all over you. You also have no obligation to feed her. With a store across the street, she's just being an entitled brat, and you shouldn't let her get away with it. I just can't imagine someone letting me live with them rent-free and me not repaying them by buying groceries or something, maybe cooking a few meals, let alone expecting them to provide for me. That's some crazy entitlement. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let Bella eat your food or not? Please let us know. I'd find a new roommate is what I'd do. Tommy boy ain't got no spine. My wife married me because of my best friend. We are from the same high school. Apparently, my wife had a huge crush on my best friend since junior high, and my best friend knew about this. So it's been 10 years since we got married, and she still loves him. That makes it 10 plus years of one-sided love from her to him and 12 years of my one-sided love to her. She only got close to me and dated me so she could be in touch with my best friend. She wanted to be a part of his life no matter what, so she chose me as a scapegoat. And here I thought that she loved me. How did I find this out? She told me 3 weeks ago. Why did she tell me? Because I decided we were ready to have kids, and I brought up the discussion over dinner. She told me she could make love with me, she could marry me, and even act like she loved me, and obviously did a good job at it. But she can't bear to give birth to a kid that's mine and not his. She can't give birth to a kid who looks like me and not him. So she can't have my baby. Then she left me that day. She didn't even say sorry. Not that it would make it any better, but she did say that she did her best. Did her best, and this is what it is. That's the end of the story. I have no more to tell. She just left and isn't picking up my calls, emails, texts, or whatever way of contacting her. I haven't reached out to my best friend either. I know they're not together. Actually, maybe I'll be happy for her if she does end up with him at this point. And here I am, not even feeling anything, and I'm not sure if this is normal. This feels like a whole big play. I'm not even sure if I even put this in the right text. Thank you for all your concerns, and just to clear some things up. We did talk about having kids before this, a couple of times actually, but I wasn't very serious about it until now. She said she wasn't really into having kids yet, and she just wanted to enjoy ourselves when we could. I didn't know that would mean something so differently to her. She made it clear that she isn't seeking any relationship with my friend. She told me that she just doesn't really imagine having a relationship with him, and that will be how it is for whoever knows how long. I know this sounds weird, but she told me this whole one-sided love is a bit of a permanent habit of hers that she can't get rid of. Ever. I don't know if she seek therapy for this because I was out of my mind at the time to even ask some of the questions I have, and I want her to answer. Divorce. I'm not sure how I'll be dealing with this. I really loved her. To sound even more crazy, I still do. No, I don't intend to continue this marriage. This marriage was meant to break from the very start now that I think about it. I'm just really tired at the moment to even seek an attorney, psychiatrist, or therapist. I know I'm also weird, but I want to talk to her first before doing things legally. There are still many things I want to ask her about, hear about her, and be mad about, but I just can't do any of it right now. My buddy probably doesn't know that she still has feelings. Who would have known that a person could have one-sided feelings towards someone for over a decade? I don't intend on talking about it to him until some of the things are cleared up on my side. Update. My wife, for one, is a good person, or at least she was. At least the person who I was with would be viewed as a good person from a social perspective. I'm not saying this to protect her, I'm giving you an idea of how people would view her in general if you knew her. She can't pass by homeless people without giving them anything out of her purse. She can't let a friend be sad and do nothing about it. She's full of emotions, empathy, sympathy, love, etc. She volunteers every weekend for seniors and homeless people. Many more can be listed, but you get my point. She was pretty attractive too. That's why I fell in love with her. She was charming, smart, and kind, a dream girl. I wouldn't have asked for anyone else. We were all friends, as I've mentioned, and when she showed interest in me, I also eventually grew feelings for her pretty quickly. Why would I hesitate? Like I said, she was my dream girl. For all I know, I was her first guy. She never was with anyone else that I know for sure. Her family was strict, and she lived with them until marriage, so I wouldn't say she really had a chance to get physical with anyone. So yes, I was her first. I wouldn't in a million years suspect that all these times were a lie. Well, she did a darn good job at keeping this secret of hers. I was devoted to making her happy. I would have done anything for her. I loved her to the core, every inch of her. I did everything I could to make her happy. That's why it hurts so much right now, being betrayed. Or was it really a betrayal if she never loved me in the first place? Because I sincerely believed her. I mean, how would anyone pretend to ask for a kiss, a hug, and affection to someone for over 10 years if they never even loved them? Would you really want to cuddle up with someone that you don't love? Would you really want to share the same bed with someone you never loved? Would you really want to hold someone's hand that you never truly loved? I mean, for over a decade. How can anyone be this good at acting? Yes, I'm probably in denial, and I probably will be for a long time, because apparently you can do all of that stuff without actually loving someone, which I still can't believe. I got up with my buddy last night and asked him what's new, drank a bit, and finally I brought this conversation up. It wasn't easy to bring it up. I mean, to put it in literal text, my wife married me because she loved you. He was shocked, of course. It's probably just as much as I was. He didn't know what to say for a long time. It seems like she never contacted him even after she left. With that, to my surprise, other than our small dinner gatherings together that did happen sometimes, she never really contacted him personally. To be honest, she didn't really join those dinner gatherings much either. I asked him, "Did my wife ever tell you she had feelings for you?" To that he mentioned, "A long time ago, yes. She did say she had feelings for me. But that was like more than a decade ago, long before you two were dating, which we were all young and dumb. We talked for a long time about a lot of things, mostly about our past, our school years, college life, etc. And now here I am, feeling guilt. I feel guilty to the point that it hurts my guts." He didn't ask to be involved in this messy story, but I decided it was a good idea to talk to him about it. I regret it. He said sorry, even though it was not his fault. I'm a terrible person for this. As for my wife, we're meeting up in 2 weeks. If you ask why 2 weeks, she left an email saying she's in another country because she also felt like she needed to go off to somewhere to put things together, and she'll return in 2 weeks. If you ask why I'm meeting up with her, she asked if it's okay with me. She wants to meet up for a talk, and I agreed to it. I have lots of things to ask her. I haven't really had proper sleep for weeks. I'm so tired. My husband is mad that I have a higher IQ, and he says that he's not attracted to me anymore. He came home one day and gave me a login to some IQ test, and I scored higher than him. First he was in disbelief, then a bit sulky. I thought the whole thing was stupid, and I never thought or experienced that I'm smarter, and I never understood the logic of these tests. Anyway, since then he has changed. He doesn't want to cuddle or kiss me or anything. Last Saturday, we attended a birthday party for my little nephew, and my husband spent the night chatting up my sister-in-law's sister, who's very pretty. When we got home, I just had it up to here with him and started crying because he ignored me for at least 3 weeks, and now he's flirting with other people. He denied everything. He denied being changed with me since the test, but I wasn't backing down this time. I told him that I wasn't stupid and that he stopped being affectionate since that day. He finally admitted that he was no longer attracted to me. I asked him if he still wasn't attracted to me and why. I haven't changed. I'm still me. He apologized and said that he would get his crap together and that he knows how silly this is. But he has been wary around me since. I still think that he's turned off by this. What can I do now? Update. We're taking a break. So I told my husband that I've had enough. He's obviously had a change of heart, and I'm not going to be there to witness him falling out of love with me. The mere thought is painful. He called me drama and said that while his reaction was bitter and stupid, I'm taking a huge leap in the wrong direction since he already acknowledged his mistake and he's working towards being better. I told him that wasn't true. He's still avoiding me like I'm a leper. I asked him to see his phone. He's been talking a bit too friendly to a coworker. It started immediately after this whole test thing, like he was determined to hurt me, or I don't know what he was trying to accomplish otherwise. In one of the texts, he complains that I was neglectful and full of myself. How ironic to pretend that I'm the neglectful one when he's not even kissed my cheek in over a month. I felt it was a matter of time before he would cheat on me. I'm not staying for that. I asked him to move out. This morning he texted me that he loved me and that he was sorry. He didn't know what he was trying to prove to me or to himself, but that he loves me and finds me very attractive. I call BS, honestly. He's been so cold with me, flirting with everyone that looked his way, and now he's all loving and affectionate? He wants us to try therapy, and he suggested that he needed to work on his insecurities with a therapist too. We have a daughter together who's 8 months that we love more than anything, but I don't know. Why does it feel like it's over and that I don't trust him anymore? I feel like I know now what he's capable of doing when faced with adversity, and going through rough patches is inevitably in every marriage. I don't like his method of dealing with it. I'm too intelligent to put up with this. Those tests are often not that accurate, but this time I think OP really was way smarter than her husband. What was his endgame here? Shaking my head. I don't put much stock in IQ tests, but she really is smarter than him. My husband also found one of those IQ tests online and convinced me to take it. When I scored higher than him, he wouldn't shut up about it for weeks, but I was like, oh my god. Well, what would you prefer? Would you like a partner with a higher IQ than yourself or not? Please let us know. Obviously, we know that's what you like, Reddit boy. Your IQ's lower than the approval rate for the new background art we tried recently. Am I the jerk for refusing to go to my sister's child-free wedding despite not having kids? Background. I'm the youngest of 4 girls. My 2 older sisters, who are 32 and 30, both have kids. My third sister, who's 27, doesn't, and she's getting married at the end of the month. I, 23, also don't have kids, but my partner and I hope to someday in the future. Oldest sister lives overseas with her husband, and so is mostly irrelevant in the situation. Her and sister 3 don't speak. Anyway, sister 3 is having a child-free wedding. She is, like, aggressively child-free. We really don't get along well. So basically our parents are old. I do love them, and they can no longer drive. I can't drive either, but my husband can, as can my older sister. She's a single mom though, and had no one to watch her kids. My husband and soon-to-be brother-in-law hate each other. They grew up together, and there's just lots of bad feelings there, so my husband wasn't going to the wedding. I was going to have him drop me off. In the end, last weekend, after months of anxiety, I said I would stay with the kids so my parents and sister could go. She will drive them and attend in my place. My sister lost it at that, then decided she would have someone else drive our parents and asked me to come. I told her no, my older sister wants to go. I'd rather her be there anyway, as if one of our parents falls or something, she knows what to do. Sister lost it and said that I was being selfish. This is where I may be the jerk. I then told her I didn't see the point in going to an event half the family would be missing from, referencing the kids. She said it shouldn't matter to me because I don't even have kids. I then said they were better company than her and point blank refused to attend her wedding. Even if the kids have a babysitter, which sister is now offering to pay for, I wouldn't go. She's so upset. I feel a little bad, but not much. My older sister says I'm in the right. Second sister says she feels really bad. Our parents aren't really acknowledging the situation. I think they just want to see their daughter get married. Am I the jerk? CEO didn't understand what my department did apparently. Some backstory. I was a general troubleshooter for my company. My job involved a lot of traveling to different clients we support. My area of work is Ontario, Canada, and some of the nearby states in the US, New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, Pennsylvania. I did most of my traveling by car since my schedule can change quite quickly and flying can become very expensive. I had one colleague who is technically my subordinate, but we have a very good working relationship and would often handle calls independently of each other, only checking in by phone once a week and in person once a month when necessary. A little over a year ago, I get an email calling me to the head office in New York City for a meeting with the CEO and the board of directors regarding my job. I check with my colleague and he gets the same email. So we make our travel plans and meet in New York City the following week. We have dinner together the night before our meeting and can't figure out between us what the issue is about. It's rare to get summoned to head office and more rare for things to be so vague. When we go into the meeting the next day, we're informed that the company is dividing our department between the US and Canada, and there would be a new position to deal with the US clients and we were to restrict ourselves to Canada. Both my colleague and I were a little shocked at this since neither of us had ever heard that this was being discussed. I asked who the new person for the US was, and we then learned it was a new hire that the CEO had taken a special interest in. Trying to be of good spirit, I offered to train the new person. There are many realities of this job that are not in the job description. CEO accepted and then brought in the new hire. In walks a young lady who looks about 23 years old and wears an expression that she knows everything. She sits at the table and immediately makes it very clear that she wants nothing to do with us. We have the CEO, Bob, the new hire, Karen, and my colleague, Jim. Bob: welcome, Karen. We've just informed OP and Jim about the change in structure, and they're willing to give you the support you need to get yourself started. Karen and Bob both look at me. Glad to have you aboard, Karen. I think both Jim and I have a lot of experience to share with you, and we're happy to do so. Perhaps it would be better in a separate meeting so we don't take the board's time. Karen: thank you all. I have a lot of ideas about how I can streamline our department and new policies I can introduce that should save the company a lot of money and expenses. I'm very confused at this point. Karen is speaking as though she's my supervisor, and that is distinctly not what Bob spoke to us about. I can see some of the board members giving strange looks at this as well. Me. Bob, perhaps I misunderstood the new roles here. Would you please clarify? Bob. Sure. Karen is the new head of your department, and both you and Jim will answer directly to her. Board member. That isn't what we discussed or approved as a board. We weren't fully convinced of dividing the department, but this is completely against what we discussed. Karen. What did you discuss then? Board member. That your department would be divided between the US and Canada. OP and Jim would remain north of the border, and you would run the US. Karen. That's not what I was told, but I can work with that, as long as these two stay out of my way. Indicating me and Jim. Jim and I are both shocked and insulted to be spoken to in this manner. We're both very good at our jobs, and before today have never seen this woman in our lives. Bob. That settles it. OP, effective immediately, you and Jim have nothing to do with Karen. Do not interfere with her work at all. You are both to restrict yourselves to working within Canada only. With that, he ended the meeting and left the room with Karen close behind him. Jim and I sat there stunned for a moment, and some of the board members came up to us to express their shock and sympathies with us. I had enough presence of mind to ask if we could get a written directive of this change and was assured that we would. Sure enough, both Jim and I got emails with a new directive from Bob by the end of the day. So after sending an email to all of our US-based clients advising them of the change and giving them the contact information for Karen, Jim and I made our way back to Toronto and reorganized ourselves for working within Ontario only. This meant much less traveling for us, so it gave more room to breathe. Within a week, I was getting complaints from our US-based clients that Karen was not answering emails and missing appointments. I forwarded these emails to Karen and copied the entire board, including Bob. Another week later, I get a phone call from Karen, who sounds frantic but won't admit that she needs help. She makes pleasant conversation and then asks how I would handle a particular type of situation. I tell her I'm really not interested in discussing work, as that might be seen as interfering in her work. Later that evening, I get a call from Jim telling me he had the same conversation with Karen and handled it the same way. By the end of that month, I get a call from Bob asking if I'll take over the entire department again. I politely tell him no, since I don't want to interfere with Karen in her role. For the next 3 months, I'm getting emails and phone calls from US clients asking if they can have me back as their contact. This confirms an idea that had been in my head. Jim and I had actually grown our client base in Ontario since restricting ourselves here. So I had lunch with Jim one day and asked him if he wanted to go into business with me as partners, starting our own consulting firm. We couldn't provide everything our current company provided, but we could provide a high degree of professionalism for our specific field, and it seemed we had a ready-made client base. By the end of the lunch, he was on board, and we started the necessary steps to get ourselves set up. As soon as we were clear, we both submitted our resignations with explanations of why. The next time clients contacted us, we told them we no longer worked for the company. When they asked if we still worked in the field, we told them we had established our own firm and what services we offered. A month later, we had 60% of our US clients on board, and since the former company had no Canadian support at all, we had 80% of the Canadian clients. Within 2 months, we had 80% of the US and 90% of Canadian clients. In the years since that time, our new company has grown enough that we've hired 7 new consultants. Jim and I find ourselves doing more office work than road work and a lot of client courting. Our old company has had to stop offering the in-person troubleshooting, what our department did, and Bob was fired by the board. No idea what happened to Karen. Update. Because of interest expressed in the comments, I made a phone call to one of the board members I remained friendly with. Here are some answers to questions. How did Karen get the job? Apparently, Bob had set up a business school scholarship out of his own money, which had put something like 6 or 7 students through business school. Karen was the latest graduate, and Bob wanted to give her a start in the business world. Was Bob hooking up with Karen? No clear answer was given, but Bob's wife divorced him shortly after he was fired from the company. Make of that what you will. What happened to Karen? Apparently, she got a job as middle management in a financial services company. Hopefully, she can still build a life for herself and has learned some important lessons. What happened to Bob? Last I heard, he was a regional director for a large hotel chain. Hopefully, he also lands on his feet. Everyone deserves a chance to make a life for themselves. Some questioned why the board was there for this meeting. I honestly don't know, and neither did the board member I spoke with. It was one of their regularly scheduled meetings, and Bob added things to the agenda. Some questioned my use of non-compete, saying it's not nice. It's a normal reality in the business world. The oddity is that my old company did not have one. The non-compete I have my employees sign is not overly burdensome. It protects our intellectual property and professional contacts. It does not in any way restrict the employee's ability to work in the field. That said, Jim and I have both agreed that if an employee leaves us on good terms and reasonably asks to be released from the non-compete, we would oblige. Some inquired if we're still hiring. Unfortunately, we're not. We're taking a pause from expansion right now as Jim's wife is dealing with cancer. I don't want Jim to worry about the office while taking care of his wife, so we've decided to maintain our size, which I can do with minimal input from Jim, until his wife is in remission and he has a chance to rest and return his attention to our company. Jim and I treat each other like family, so this is a natural step for us. Neighbor tries to flex, gets what he deserves. Spec home build with a $12 million budget and a 16-month schedule. Next door neighbor immediately qualifies as a complete jerk. Knows everybody, including the principals of the company I work for. At the very beginning of the work, he asks for a row of redwood trees to be planted as screening between the properties. Principal grants his request as a good neighbor gesture, $31,000. Every step of the project, he either stands out at the end of the driveway taking pictures or he's flying his drone over the lot. He starts asking questions about whether or not work in progress is covered under the permit. He confides that he has obtained a copy of the permit and a set of plans. One day, he asks us for a meeting to discuss the redwood trees. Yes, those trees. He comes over at the appointed time and introduces his wife's landscape architect. Famous guy apparently, and he tries pulling some muscle moves by trying to convince us that the redwood trees are stealing their water. They also don't fit his vision for the project that they're considering, which will be a total side and backyard makeover with walkways, stone walls, fountains, etc. He wants mature oak trees instead. Cut down and remove the redwoods at our expense and plant new oak trees, also at our expense, because, screening. We decline, which sends famous architect guy and his wife into a rage. They decide to move forward with their project anyway, and the major earth moving, concrete forming, irrigation, etc. are all getting placed. Mr. Drone Guy continues to make efforts to get the oak tree swapped in under threats that maybe some of the work we're doing isn't covered under the permit. Seems he also acted as the GC for his own remodel, so he must really know what he's talking about. He sends emails, registered letters from his lawyer, all in an effort to get us to swap out the trees. Finally, we are within sight of completing our project, and from the second floor, we can see that they have really transitioned their whole yard into little parklets with mature plantings and walkways and all the other stuff. It's impressive. So I call the town for a courtesy inspection prior to final, and the next day the inspector, an old friend whose father is also an old friend, stops by to tour the property for any red flags. I save the best for last, and we make it upstairs and make it to the best possible viewing point of the neighbor's magnificent landscape project, and my inspector friend casually but loudly says, "What's all that? I never saw a permit come through for all of that." And he bounds downstairs and heads back to the office, I'm guessing to pull files. Here comes the best part. Through property searches that we always perform as due diligence, we discovered the neighbor's side yard in its entirety is an 80-foot wide utility easement for the single largest underground water aqueduct for the entire region. Can't be built on. We kept mum. Now, because there's also a seasonal creek that crosses said easement, fish and game are notified of the work in progress. In addition, we now have the State Water Resources Board, along with the major water utility company inspections and enforcement department making inquiries along with the town building department. No permit application was ever submitted for any of the work that Mr. Drone Guy had done. Oof. Our property sold, and during some modifications for the new owner, we watched with subdued glee as every stick and stone was removed from the offending area and was to be left in a natural state for eternity. Major fines were also levied. Am I the jerk for always turning down hangouts with my friends when they ask to bring their kids? I have a friend group of 7 women from uni. I'm the only one that's child-free, but 1 is childless, 2 are pregnant with their first, and 3 have kids. We as a group rarely meet up. I've seen all of them maybe twice in the last year, and we all live in the same city. Every time someone asks to meet up and we finally find a date everyone is available, one of the moms always asks if they can bring their kid or their kids. It's usually one of 2 moms, as the third actually wants to have a kid-free evening. And before anyone else can answer, the other moms say yes. All 3 moms have husbands who can watch their kids. Most of them also have both sets of grandparents who are involved. But somehow, they never manage to find someone who can babysit, as they call it. So at this point, I've stopped answering until they've set a time and place, someone has asked about kids, and I say I can't make it. I hang out with them one-on-one or in smaller groups instead. Well, a few days ago, we agreed to finally meet up. No one had asked about kids yet, and we were having a barbecue with wine night. Well, who shows up with their 8-year-old? Yep, one of the moms. I clearly didn't hide my annoyance, and one of the girls asked me why. I just waved it off, and 30 minutes later I excused myself and left. Said I didn't feel well. In those 30 minutes, we hadn't had any adult talk. We were just entertaining their kid. I'd rather go home than do this for another 3 to 4 hours. After I left, I think they realized this was a pattern, and I got a text from most of the girls in the group. Some calling me a jerk, others just saying they were annoyed with me for leaving, while the third mom had my back and asked to meet up later that week to have a proper wine night. I don't dislike kids at all. I work with them every day, and I don't want to spend my time off relaxing with friends having to entertain other people's kids again. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Wine night with friends from college pretty much definitely means no kids. No jerks here. It sounds like your friend circle is naturally fracturing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's quite natural for young parents to want to socialize with their kids in tow when their friendship circle consists of other parents in the same situation. It's also a nice way for their kids to get friends. Not the jerk, but you're being passive-aggressive. I understand not wanting to be around kids in your free time, but you need to establish early on in the planning process that it's just a gal's night or something to that effect. You can't assume the others will automatically think of or want to arrange childcare when one of you suggests hanging out and then get mad when they don't. Am I the jerk for ignoring my friend's phone calls and telling her to buzz off? I, 37 male, have been friends with Lucy, 38 female, for about 30 years. Lucy always calls me when she has a problem, as we've been friends for so long and I've always been there for her. This can be something as small as editing her resume or something as big as needing a loan to make rent. Unfortunately, Lucy has only one mode, emergency. So whether it's a crisis or a simple problem, she always approaches it in emergency mode. The other day, I was in the middle of taking a timed assessment for work on my phone. I was about 5 minutes into it when Lucy called me. As I was in the middle of the assessment, I declined the call and put her on voicemail. As soon as I did this, she called back. I once again declined the call and put her on voicemail. She called back a third time and I did the same thing. Keeping in mind, every time she did this, it interrupted my assessment. The clock kept running and the screen filled with her phone call taking away the question. She texted me, which popped up on my screen. 911, call me. I responded, busy, call you in 20. She replied, please, it's an emergency. I closed the text and continued my assessment. She then started calling again. I put 5 calls in a row on voicemail. I was behind on my assessment, so I tried to power through, but stress was getting to me. Lucy texted me again. Need you now. I lost it and texted back, buzz off. In 30 years, neither of us has ever said that to each other, but in that moment, I just wanted her to leave me alone. She didn't respond, but stopped calling. When I finished my assessment, I called her back, and she threw me to voicemail. I texted her and said I was done and I could talk now. She replied, it's fine, I took care of it. I later learned that her car had broken down and she needed a ride to work so she wouldn't miss her shift. She wound up calling her father, she was late for work, and got a written warning. She's been very cool to me, and I feel very badly that I've hurt her. I've apologized for what I said, and she just says, it's fine, without any further comment. I'm beginning to doubt if my reaction was justified and feel horrible for damaging our friendship. Am I the jerk for how I reacted and not helping my friend when she was in need? Not the jerk. It wasn't a 911, it was an inconvenience. It sounds like a toxic relationship in which she just uses you. Move on, dude. She's not a friend. Not the jerk. She failed to consider that you could possibly be doing something that cannot be interrupted because she's the main character. And now, having learned that she was interrupting you in the middle of something critical, her response is not to apologize, but to act as though you were in the wrong for not stopping whatever you're doing, anything, because she's the priority? That's messed up. This person is not a friend. She considers you a servant. Not the jerk. I got irritated just reading this. She must be absurdly entitled if she thinks she can simply demand that you drop what you're doing, whatever it is, the moment she calls. Karen neighbor tries to steal my package. Huge mistake. So I had been waiting for my package that cost $700. Was waiting for it like a hawk. I got a notification that the package was about 2 stops away, so I started watching live stream of my security camera waiting for the guy to deliver it. Amazon guy came and put a small envelope inside my mailbox, and I saw him take my big box to the neighbor across the street, and I saw that he rang the doorbell. The neighbor came out and they took it in. First, I thought, okay, maybe it's not mine. So I checked my orders and it said, delivered, handed directly to resident. That's when I knew it was in fact my package. I decided to wait about 30 minutes to give the neighbor a chance to bring it back, to just drop it off at my doorstep. But when I saw that she was not returning my package, I got my coat on and went straight to their house, rang the doorbell and said, "Hi, I'm your neighbor from across the street. I saw that Amazon dropped off my package to your house, and it looks like they dropped off yours at mine." The woman immediately said, "Oh, I was confused. I thought my husband had ordered it." It was obvious she had every intention to keep it. The package came in 3 boxes, a really big one, another one sealed inside of it, and then another box, the actual item, inside of that second box. To my surprise, she had already opened the boxes. I don't believe for 1 second that she was confused. The label had my name and address right next to the part where she had to pull off the tape to open the big box. So then, she just wanted to give me the box of the actual item, which thankfully was still sealed. I guess she didn't open that one because she could see what it was and was probably going to wait to see if anyone would claim it. And I said, no, I'm going to need the other 2 boxes as well in case I need to return it. I watched her struggling to put all the boxes back into the big box, and then she gave it to me. I gave her her small envelope that Amazon dropped off at my house, untampered and sealed, and said thank you, which I regret saying because not one time did she say sorry or thank you. I bet she's done this before and just keeps packages that aren't hers. But the audacity to receive the package and open it. Had she lied and said she didn't receive it, I would have shown her the security footage, but I gave her no option to say that she didn't receive it. Honestly, if she had opened it by mistake and then brought it back to me apologizing for opening the package because she assumed it was hers, I would have been grateful and said not to worry and thanked her for bringing it back. I gave her the chance and the time to bring it back, but she did not. Now I refer to that house as the House of Thieves. I'd also report the delivery driver that claimed it was delivered and handed directly to resident, since it clearly wasn't. OP. Yeah, I already contacted Amazon. Do you have an HOA you can report your neighbor to? There's no telling how many other packages she's stolen like this. I can't believe the audacity of some people. Who in the right mind would just keep a package that obviously isn't for them? The driver himself really messed up too, and I hope you report him to Amazon. Every time I've reported a driver for being an idiot, I usually don't see them delivering anymore after that, so I'm thinking they get replaced once they get a complaint. I don't know where they find these people, to be honest. They deserve the jump scare they get from my fake rattlesnake that I leave by the front door. Oh, that is so not cool. Amazon drivers are the worst. Like, how hard is it to check the address before you drop off a package? I definitely report them to the higher-ups and be sure to follow up on it. I had a friend that delivered for Amazon, and he said that drivers typically suffer no consequences for their complaints unless you reach out to corporate directly, which will usually result in them getting fired. Call me crazy, but what if she just didn't check the label? Unless I'm expecting a package, I just assume whatever arrives is for my wife, so I leave it in the kitchen somewhere that she will see it. I think you've been reading too many of these Reddit stories, and you might be assuming your neighbors are out to get you. Reddit, the place where being the voice of reason gets you downvoted to heck. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his neighbor? Please let us know. My daughter is demanding to use her college fund for a wedding and a house. Backstory. I, 43 female, have 4 kids. Elle, who's 22, female, Katie, who's 17, Cam, who's 15, and Isla, who's 5, and I'm also currently pregnant right now. Me and my husband, who's 50, male, started adding to college funds every month for each of our kids pretty much as soon as we found out that we were pregnant. I won't say the exact amount, but my husband has an excellent job, so it's more than most. We never told our kids because it just didn't feel necessary. Elle got pregnant when she was 16 and ended up dropping out of school. I was very disappointed, but I understood. However, I was under the impression she would return later, but she still has no plans to. The dad stuck around, and now they have one more kid who's 3 and one on the way. They're engaged, but don't plan to get married until they can afford it. They were doing okay financially for a while, but due to the market right now, they've been struggling because Elle can't find a job since she doesn't have a diploma, so we've been loaning them money for the time being. Katie is a senior and just got accepted into college. We've been setting everything up, and obviously she knows about the fund now. Katie and Elle were talking, and she was telling Elle about the school, and Elle asked how she was planning on paying for it. Katie responded, "My college fund." I was in the room while they were talking, and this made me panic. We had just planned on splitting it between the remaining 4 since we knew that they were going to college. Elle asked me if they all had one, and I wasn't going to lie, so I said yes. She got really excited and went to call her fiance and tell him the good news. I was confused and told her that she couldn't have the money. She asked me why, and I said it's for school. She got upset and left my house. The next day, I got a call from Elle. She was crying and begging me to let her have the funds so she could finally afford a down payment and maybe even a wedding. I told her she could have the money if she goes back to school, and whatever money is left over, she could use for whatever she wants to. She got super mad and started yelling at me and saying it's her money. I told her that it was my money and those were my conditions, and she hung up. Now we're being harassed by her fiance's family. They aren't as fortunate as us, calling us jerks and a lot of other names, saying it's all gonna go to waste if she doesn't use it. We're setting her up for failure, etc. Now I'm wondering if I'm the jerk because my dad said we should just give her the money as we saved it for her after all. Update. My daughter came over on Thursday and we were able to work things out. We both apologized and had a long discussion. She will be getting her GED and will be going to trade school in exchange for me giving her whatever money is left over. She hasn't decided which one yet, but it will probably be cosmetology. Her fiance's family has apologized. We also decided to pay for a small wedding ceremony and reception as a gift. I wonder if Elle would have gone back to school if she had known about the money. As a teen with a baby and no money, one concentrates on survival, not on education. If her parents had told her about the college fund, she might have made different choices, maybe getting an education and not having a second and third kid without career prospects, etc. The weirdest thing to me is that there was apparently no discussion about her daughter's future when she was 16. How is that not a conversation? Okay, you're dropping out of school and having a kid. What's your plan for the future? Dad and I have a college fund for you and would like you to go back to school. Is that so hard? Your kid is having a kid, and your reaction to her dropping out of school is, "I was very disappointed, but I understood." They clearly have financial resources. I just don't get it. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know. I know this is the unpopular opinion, but college funds are set aside by parents for college, not to use however you please. Just because your parents have saved year after year for you to get an education doesn't mean you're entitled to use that amount of money however you want to. Don't at me. My fiance got a face tattoo without talking to anyone. My fiance, Kim, I've just learned is completely insane. She took some days off work this week, being sick, and avoided seeing most people in person. She claimed she was feeling sick and just wanted to stay home alone. She's never given me any indication that she would lie about this in the 6 years we've been together. No one in her family had any worries because she was a stable individual and would never do anything crazy. She got a face tattoo. She took 3 sick days off of work to recover from the fact that she got a face tattoo. She told no one of this plan beforehand. I've never in our entire time together been talked to about tattoos by Kim. She showed no indication that she was even interested in getting any. I was not even the first to learn. Her sister visited her because she was worried after Kim canceled meeting with her for lunch on the 3rd day of being sick and got the grand reveal. She didn't tell anyone beforehand because she didn't want to be talked out of it and hid the results because of the swelling and the redness from getting the tattoo. She thought we would react badly and not be able to understand the artistic meaning. Kim is Asian American. She got Japanese symbols going down her forehead and under her eye. I don't know the meaning of them. I don't really know if I care to know the meaning of them. Kim's parents are Japanese immigrants. According to her sister, who was nice enough to inform me of this whole debacle, this is a big no-no in Japanese culture. Tattoos have links to crime and are looked down upon. Her parents are beside themselves, and that's a whole other set of drama that I can't even begin to approach. Kim talked to me last night about it and acted offended and started a fight with me because I told her it was absolutely insane of her to do this. She works a public-facing job. She talks face-to-face with clients in the financial industry. The minute her boss finds out, the career that she went to school for will be over. She actually didn't consider her job or family or me at all and decided a long time ago that she was going to express herself freely without any concerns. I'm worried about her now. This is not normal. She blocked my number after our fight and is ghosting me and her sister because we're trying to help. But dear Lord, this is far beyond me. I cannot comprehend what I'm even supposed to do right now. Kim's lost her mind. Is there any chance I'll be happily married to this? A woman who went and got a face tattoo and hid that fact because she knew we would all talk her out of it. Dear Lord, I really need to run, don't I? Update. The engagement is pretty much off. Kim has told me she never wants to see me again, and I woke up this morning with her ring and a box of stuff that I gave her on my porch. I don't know what's going on with her. Her sister and family have been trying their best, but nothing on their end is working. I brought up to her sister the idea this is a mental breakdown and they're looking into getting her help. It's painfully slow considering Kim is not responding to anything and is refusing to talk to anyone. I really don't know what to say here, I guess. To answer some questions, Kim is 29 and I'm 28. In the 7 years I've known her, she has never acted like this at all. She had a good relationship with her parents, and while they were a bit overbearing at times, they supported her in going to college and getting a career rather than starting a family. From what I've gathered, they probably would have been fine with any tattoo she got as long as it wasn't on her face, neck, or hands. Even then, this kind of behavior is as far from Kim as I can imagine. She just lost her mind out of nowhere. It's not like I can do anything about it either. She's blocked my number and does not want to see me. I'm just at a loss for words. One day I'm engaged, and the next I'm not, and my ex has a face tattoo. Update. This was just the start of her doing everything she could to ruin her life. She broke up with me and called off our 7-year relationship when I questioned why she did this. She worked in a client-facing job for an incredibly large financial institution and was let go within a month of showing back up for work after getting her tattoo. I kept in contact with Kim's sister hoping for some news. They tried to get her help as they thought she was having some kind of psychotic break. However, she eventually called the police on her own family, claiming that they were harassing her. After that, I decided to just walk away. Kim didn't just destroy her own life. When she broke up with me, I felt numb. I knew this wasn't Kim doing this. I wanted to believe deep down that Kim was always like this. Always this impulsive crazy who would ruin her life by getting a face tattoo. I tried to convince myself that I had not lost a wonderful woman who I had spent 7 years of my life with. However, the person who made these choices was not Kim. The woman who told me over the phone she hated my guts for not supporting her. The woman who wrote she hated me and only ever stayed with me out of pity. That was not the woman I asked to marry. That wasn't Kim. That was someone who I came to find out was having a mental breakdown. The day I walked away and told her sister I could not deal with it anymore was the worst day of my life. It hit me like a train. The numbness and denial of what I lost hit me all at once. I almost quit my own job and moved back home to my parents. I can only thank my boss for being so understanding that she let me take 4 weeks off to deal with what happened. She and the rest of my team went far beyond what should ever be expected of coworkers and management that makes me realize how close I was to leaving my job I actually enjoy. I never moved on from Kim, but I came to accept what happened. I thought I was okay until 2 weeks ago. I got a call from Kim. She had blocked my number and done everything she could to remove me from her life. My mind just blanked when I saw it was her calling. I picked up, and it was actually her. We didn't talk. I did not know what else to say to her. We decided she would come over to my place, and we talked. The tattoo is still there, but she's covering it up now with makeup. She says when she has the funds, she's going to look into getting it removed if possible. She had lost a lot of weight since I last saw her. She's not been able to find a new job. She'll probably need to move to a new city for that. She wasn't the Kim I had fallen in love with. She was like a shell of her former self. Something just wasn't there anymore that used to be. Kim told me what had happened. The year leading up to the tattoo was awful for her. The stress of everything seemed to pile up more and more. I'll respect her and keep much of what she told me secret. However, the thing that's important is that she secretly started taking things she shouldn't have to keep her performance up at work to deal with everything. And one day, she just out of nowhere decided she hated everything about her life. She explained why at the time she wanted the tattoo. It doesn't really make sense, but a lot of what she was thinking at the time didn't. And from there, she just lost control of everything. I won't talk about what happened after she disappeared, but it's not pretty. There are things she did that will follow her for the rest of her life. It explained a lot, but it did not make things any better. We talked for nearly the entire night. She didn't leave my place until almost 4 a.m. Since then, she said that she wants to try and get back together with me. She admitted she knows things cannot be the same, yet she wants to try. I haven't talked to anyone about what I'm about to say yet. I've held off on talking to Kim about it because it feels selfish, but there's something about the way Kim acts about the way it affected my life that irks me. When we talked that night, she said that I was lucky she cut me off. I was lucky I didn't get put through any of this. I was lucky that my crazy ex wasn't at my door screaming or showing up to my work and causing a scene. She acts like my life wasn't affected at all. I told her what happened after she left, how much it hurt, how I almost quit my own job and moved across the country. Her response was dismissive, like because I didn't go through with that, I don't get to complain. She acted like because I was not the one with a tattoo on my face, I don't get to act like it's having long-lasting effects on me. She didn't even apologize for the hateful note that she left with my things when she returned them, or for the phone call where she called me a manipulative, selfish jerk who was just trying to use her, or even just for breaking up with me. She knows she was wrong to do it, but it's almost as if she's acting like because she had a breakdown, I can't hold her accountable for what she did to me because it wasn't long-lasting. I texted her last night saying how hard it was for me when she left. She ignored it entirely and just tried to move on. No acknowledgement at all. I don't know why, but it really hurt me. It hurt me so much. I feel like I did back when all those emotions finally hit me after she left. I wish she had just never come back into my life now. I wish I didn't know whatever happened. I wish I hadn't picked up the call because it hurts. But a part of me feels like I'm being selfish or complaining too much, that I don't get to feel this way because I'm not the one who had the mental breakdown. I would really love to know what tattoo artist even agreed to this. I have a ton of tattoos myself. We do not tattoo faces, necks, or hands of clients we don't know. This is what's called the Disqualified for Life Club, because you're disqualified from getting a lot of jobs. I personally don't tattoo these areas for that reason. My shop would have flat out refused to do this. I saw videos of my fiance cheating during her bachelorette party. I can't believe I'm involved in a story like this. I haven't actually talked to anyone about what happened, even though a lot of people are trying to. I think I just need to vent a little bit before I talk to anyone. My girlfriend and I were together 4 years, and we were engaged to be married. Last weekend, she had her bachelorette party. I didn't have a problem with it, especially after what she told me her plan was. Her and some friends were going to rent an Airbnb or something, a big place with like 4 bedrooms, and they were just going to get trashed and party and hang out. The day of the party, she was at my place, a 2-bedroom apartment. One room I use as a home office. I'm a self-employed investor. She makes all of the arrangements and goes to meet her friends. We texted a little bit, but as the party warmed up, we stopped, and I figured they were just having fun. After midnight, I start getting ready for bed and notice that the computer in my office isn't turned off. Rather, the black screen was just a screensaver. It turns out Fiance had not logged out and her messenger was still open on the computer. There was a group chat where her and the girls had been planning everything, and a lot of videos were uploaded to the chat. I was a little curious, and I started watching some of the videos. Most of them were pretty innocent, just a group of 15 getting drunk and dancing and whatever. Then there was a video of a woman going to the front door and about 10 guys enter the apartment. I don't know who they were and I didn't recognize anyone. There were a couple videos of the guys and girls dancing and drinking, and then the worst happened. A video started of my fiance making out with a guy on the sofa. She stops and rolls over and starts making out with another one. Then she ends up going into a room with 2 of them. There was also a video of them coming out of that room that according to the timestamps was 5 minutes later, but that doesn't mean anything. For all I know, the videos were an hour apart and they were all just uploaded at the same time. Seeing all this was like a sledgehammer to me. I walked into the bathroom because I thought I would be sick. I wasn't, but I paced back and forth in the apartment for like 30 minutes. Then I poured myself a rocks glass full of whiskey and chugged it down. I saved the videos and then made one of my own, just a short little selfie video of me saying, "Hi, this is OP, your ex-fiance. Just wanted to say I saw the videos from the party and the wedding is off. I hope it was worth it." I'm glad I saved the videos because in less than 10 minutes they were all deleted and my phone started blowing up, but I didn't answer any calls or texts. At first, it was just my girlfriend texting saying she can explain and it's not what it looked like. Then her friends joined in, but I ignored everyone and I didn't respond. Then suddenly I got a request for a video chat, and I'll admit my curiosity got the better of me. I answered the call but didn't say anything. It was my fiance sitting in front of the camera and she looked like she had been crying and the other friends just sitting around her. I really only know maybe 4 of the friends, but I recognized a lot of the others. First, she starts apologizing, but kept saying it wasn't what it looked like. It was just a party, and the guys coming over was not planned or anything like that. She said it might have looked bad, but nothing happened. When I didn't say anything, she just kept going on with more of the same, and her friends backed her up. The more I didn't speak, the more hysterical she got. Eventually, she admitted to kissing the 2 guys, but dumped the blame on her friends, who all took responsibility for that, which surprised me a little. She said the kisses didn't mean anything, and that's all that happened. Then she seemed to remember the video of her going into the room, and she started screaming that it was just a joke and nothing happened. All the other women confirmed it was just a joke and that my fiance had walked into the room and then turned around and walked out again. This just kept going on, and they just kept repeating themselves. Eventually, everyone got quiet, and all I said was, "Is there anything else to add?" She said no, and I just ended the video call. I went onto social media and changed my relationship status to single and posted that the wedding was off, and if anyone had bought a present, they should feel free to return it. Fiance saw the post and is freaking out even more and just keeps insisting that all she did was kiss and nothing else. I sent her a text saying if I suspect that her or any of her friends lie about what happened or try to make me the bad guy, then I will post all of the videos online. Right now, no one else knows what's happening. This was a couple days ago, and everything for the wedding is canceled, and my fiance just keeps pursuing me. Any advice on what I should do from here? Update. Pretty simple. Everything has been called off and canceled. The wedding is officially not happening. I got the ring back, and all of her stuff is moved out. She's staying with her parents for now. We did talk a little bit. It was mostly just her begging and apologizing and crying. She keeps insisting that all she did was kiss them. And she has never done anything like this before, and she promises it won't ever happen again. Part of me really wanted to believe her, but the problem is that this incident puts our entire relationship in doubt. I think she may be telling the truth, but again, the point is there's no way to know. If it is true that her friends pressured her to do it, then how can I believe they never did it before? We kept going around in circles because ultimately there's just no way I can be sure. She said she would do anything, including cutting off her friends and only ever drink around me. She really blasted her friends online, saying if the party had stuck to the original plan, she'd still be getting married, so maybe she's already cut them off. All I can say is that at the moment I'm single, and I'm just going to live my life. Probably take some time to myself after getting out of a 4-year relationship. What's crazy is that a couple of her friends are also texting me just to talk. I haven't responded yet because, well, it's hard for me to trust them. Thanks again to everyone who expressed sympathy, and I hope none of you ever need to deal with anything like this in the future. All she did was kiss them? Okay, and for a lot of people, that's enough to warrant breaking things off. If plans hadn't changed, she'd still be getting married? No. If you hadn't cheated, you'd still be getting married. Maybe her friends encouraged her to cheat, but they didn't tie her down and make her do it. If someone's going to cheat, either of their own volition or because they can't stand an iota or peer pressure, they'll find a way to do it. And the fact that his ex can't take an ounce of accountability for her own behavior, he really dodged a bullet. Kissing is also cheating. Ex-fiance is only upset she got caught. Thank goodness OP broke up with her. The issue's not whether she hooked up with anyone, it's the fact she had the audacity to kiss the other guys and cross boundaries and then blame her friend for her own crappy behavior. If she can be so easily swayed now, imagine what would have happened after they got married. Thankfully, OP has broken up with her. Am I the jerk for telling my depressed brother he only has himself to blame for our parents not wanting to talk to him? I'm male, 34. My younger brother, Matt, who's 31, was engaged to this woman, Emma, who's 30, for the past year. Everyone in our family, my sister, parents, and myself, thought they were a perfect match. Emma was very polite, well-educated, had a great family whom he had met a few times, and was head over heels for Matt. Fast forward to 3 months ago, and Emma finds out that Matt cheated on her with this other woman, Cindy, who's 25. Needless to say, the marriage has been called off, and everyone has been beyond angry with Matt. Our parents haven't spoken to Matt since the fallout of what's happened, and even I have only spoken with him twice, each call lasting less than 5 minutes since then. Our sister has also not spoken with him either. This morning, I received a call from Matt saying he wanted to reconcile with the family. He mentioned how upset and depressed he's been since making the worst mistake of his life and how much he regrets his actions. I was listening up until this point, but got annoyed when he started mentioning how also Cindy wants to meet our parents and the rest of us. He told me that he left our parents a voicemail a few days ago, but they haven't responded and that he feels isolated from our family. I point blank told him that he only had himself to blame for this and that he clearly didn't think what he did was a mistake since he's still with Cindy. He said he just wanted us to give them a chance, but I told him I had to go to work and left the call while he was finishing a sentence as I was very frustrated with him. Am I the jerk? Update. For everyone suggesting that Matt found his true love in Cindy, that's questionable from my perspective. He still claims his current relationship with her is a mistake, and I'm fairly certain he has said as much to her in the past. Update 2. After reading more of the comments and some self-reflection, I've decided to reach out to my brother. It's true, he has done something terrible, and there's simply no other way of seeing it. However, despite the disappointment, I still do feel that I have a responsibility towards him at this low point in his life, especially considering that my parents and sister probably won't be reaching out to him. I called him, and it lasted around 20 minutes. I offered to meet him in person, which did seem to cheer him up a bit. I, however, made it abundantly clear to him that I have no interest in meeting Cindy. At this point, he said something that confirmed my suspicions on what he thinks of Cindy, but was still pretty surprising to hear him say. He told me that he's open to the idea of dumping Cindy if it helps build back his relationship with our parents and sister. When I asked him if he was sure about that, he said that she was small time and that she knew the risks of getting into a relationship with him, so her feelings would be on her. This whole situation just sucks, and I don't even know what to feel or think about it anymore. Kinda hard for it to be the worst mistake of his life when he's currently dating part of the mistake, not the jerk. So, I'm probably gonna get downvoted here, but you're the jerk and so are your parents. Matt made his bed when it comes to Emma, and their relationship ending is the result of that. And yeah, you're valid to be angry with him over that. But it's been 3 months and you're still cutting him off? Your own relative? You're choosing his ex's side over your own brother? Yes, he's horrible for what he did, and yes, you're valid for being angry with him, but what he did is ultimately between him and Emma. And if he's actually depressed because of this, you don't know what he might end up doing if you guys don't even talk to him. Reddit is going to downvote me for this because they view all cheaters as black and white, so I'm going to reiterate, cheating is never okay. It's never something that should be excused within the relationship. But you and your parents were not within his relationship with Emma, and the fact that you're all cutting him off like this tells me you have a huge issue with boundaries, and you and your family were too involved in his previous relationship. I have never cheated, nor will I ever cheat. I've been cheated on, and it sucks. But I never once expected my ex's family to choose my side over his. Never. That's so weird to me. You do you, but he didn't cheat on you or your parents, and you're acting like he did is weird. Daughter's boyfriend's parents are threatening to sue us for letting him live with us. Our daughter, who's 20, has been dating her boyfriend, who's 19, for about 8 months. Due to problems at home and extremely controlling parents, we invited him to stay with us when he had a fight with them. We attempted to mediate for the sake of both of them. Now his parents are accusing us of interference in a verbal contract they say they have with their son to follow for a specific career path. Their son says the only thing he agreed to was paying them back the money they borrowed for school. The loan is in his name. We're giving him a place to stay with no expectations. We don't profit off of it in any way. We live in Ohio. They laughably claim they were serving us a cease and desist order in a Dunkin' Donuts when we were trying to mediate. This consisted of them handing us a printed piece of paper that looks like it came off Google somewhere. No attorney names, etc. Apparently, the mom has tried this tactic with other people and it has been successful. Does any of this sound like it could have merit? Any additional steps to take? We're currently waiting to see if they actually serve us with real papers before contacting an attorney. We're taking the following steps. Filed change of address. Opened his own bank account that they're not aware of. Both of his parents are out of work on disability of some sort. Update. Thank you for all the reassurance and recommendations. We've ordered his birth certificate, locked down his credit, and are working on getting things replaced. Change of address was filed, and we're hoping it goes into effect before his driver's license arrives. His new cell phone is en route, and we will be returning his old one. Update. Our daughter's boyfriend has now been living with us for a month. He has locked his credit, has obtained his social security card, driver's license, and birth certificate. He started a job 3 weeks ago, working full-time, making $20 an hour. To me, it's not the greatest job in the world. Very heavy physical labor, but he seems to enjoy it, and that's what's important. He got his first paycheck and was so excited to be able to purchase things around the house. We took him to move the rest of his stuff out. His parents knew we were coming and had strategically moved all of their cars so that we couldn't park in their driveway. We made a point in parking in front of a neighbor's house so they couldn't complain about it, and I could almost see his father stomping his foot like a 2-year-old who didn't get a treat. Since then, things have been quiet. My wife isn't loving my new friend group. My wife and I have been together for almost 20 years. We met in university, and since we both moved for school, we always had the same group of friends. As we got older, this naturally transitioned to us mostly having couple friends. Our marriage is pretty solid. We still love each other very much, and there's been no hints of infidelity, but I can't say we haven't become a bit set in our ways. A few years back, I made some big changes to my health and fitness and started running regularly. My wife was generally supportive, but at times I could tell she was a bit put off when it got in the way of something she wanted to do. About 6 months ago, I joined a running group. We meet on Thursday nights for a run and then get drinks after. It's a mixed group with age ranges from 28 to 42 and various relationship statuses. I really get along with these folks and have become friends with a number of them. This means I generally stay out later on Thursdays and have hung out with them on separate occasions as well. It's been amazing to meet a new group of friends at my age, and they share a lot of interests with me that my wife just doesn't like. For instance, we did a weekend kayaking trip recently, which my wife would absolutely not have been on board for. My wife acts like she's cool with me hanging out with these folks, but I can tell she doesn't love it. I get it. I'm suddenly staying out late and spending weekends away with a bunch of people she doesn't know, and that includes some younger single women. That said, I'm absolutely open about everything, and there's nothing funny going on. I'm not sure it's even jealousy of that sort, but rather that she'd rather I just be home and available at all times, in case she wants or needs something from me. She started acting passive-aggressive about anything that involves plans with the group. We have a shared calendar, and if something's going on and we have nothing planned, I'll add into it. Aside from Thursday nights, these events really only happen every few weeks. If we have other plans pop up, it's like she intentionally tries to plan over these events rather than just saying we're busy and looking for another free night. Recently, she got a bit upset with me for going to my regular running night after she returned from a work trip. She told me repeatedly that she was exhausted and was going to bed early, so I thought it would be fine, but then got some passive-aggressive texts, so I cut out early and went home to spend time with her. We then sat on our phones not talking with the TV on for 45 minutes before she went to bed. I tried including her in some of my activities in the past, but she'll mostly just complain and then make excuses to not do them again. She doesn't have a separate friend group of her own, but is very close with a lot of her colleagues, and anytime she goes to a work event, which are pretty frequent, I can count on her not answering her phone and coming home pretty drunk very late at night. It doesn't upset me at all, and I trust her. For my part, I will admit that I selfishly don't really want to involve her in my friend group at this point. They're new friendships, and I don't want to change the dynamic. I also know that she won't have a lot in common with these folks. If I'm honest, I also worry a little bit about her sabotaging things. I don't really know how to proceed at this point. I really don't want to give up my new friends, but I don't know how to work through it with my wife. Update. Laid my cards on the table and just told my wife that I posted here. We're now laughing and bonding in front of a campfire, talking about how I'm a cheating jerk, she's a codependent mess, and our marriage is on the verge of collapse. We also talked things through, and she admitted she's feeling a bit neglected and that it might be coming out as passive aggression because she doesn't mean for it to. I assured her she's my ride or die and told her I'd make sure she felt like my #1 priority in the future. I read her some of the posts discussing the single young women, and she laughed hard enough to spit out some wine. She also said she understood my reasons for not wanting to invite her out with folks immediately, but trusted we'd get there soon enough. Thanks to everyone who asked insightful questions and gave practical advice. To the people who made snap judgments and jumped to name-calling, thanks for the rest of tonight's entertainment. Am I the jerk for not canceling a boys' trip upon my wife's request? So here's the backstory. Me, 33 male, and my wife, 32 female, have a 1-year-old son. Back when he was 5 months old, my friends and I began planning an annual golf trip that would take place 6 months later. As soon as we had tentative dates and location, I asked my wife if it was okay to go. She gave me approval, and I began to plan. I found an Airbnb and booked flights. Fast forward to 5 months later, a couple of weeks before the trip. Our son was in the midst of a sleep regression, and he was waking up several times each night. My wife still naturally fed him, and he would not accept me when he'd wake up upset. As a result, she was left doing all of the tending to him during the nights. One day, she approached me and said she didn't want me to go anywhere and that I needed to stay home because she was afraid it would be too much for her alone. I told her that I understood why she was anxious about it, but she had agreed to me going already, and I'd committed about $1,000 to this, had the Airbnb in my name for all 12 of us. This evolved into an argument, and she was very mad that I would not change my mind. I told her that I'd gladly return the favor on a trip if she wanted to plan one, and encouraged her to do so. During my trip, she sent me texts and called me, very upset. When I returned home, we had another argument about it. We've since reconciled, but I know her stance on it has not changed, nor has mine. Am I the jerk? Edit. I'd been asked to comment on length of trip and if I coordinated help for her before I left. I did coordinate help, but she wasn't comfortable with someone else watching him at that point. The trip was 2 days and 3 nights. Not the jerk. Does she not have family nearby? Do you not have family nearby? Did you take all of the other people she knows on the trip with you? She had plenty of notice to even arrange an out-of-town visit for help at this point, where your kid started his sleep regression. Wasting that amount of money is insane to me, and seeing the number of "you're the jerk" votes in this thread is staggering. I'm a mom, and I flat out sent her father on a trip while she was in sleep regression because having him around being effectively useless since she only wanted me made everything approximately 100 times harder emotionally and mentally. I hired my mother to house sit and dog sit for a week, and I returned to my house in shambles. Last week, my wife and I traveled to a music festival for about 5 to 6 days. I hired my mom, she needed the money, I needed a dog sitter, to take care of things while we were away for an agreed upon price. We cleaned the house prior to leaving, left her with strict instructions for what to do with our Great Dane, stocked the fridge, wrote the Wi-Fi and desktop passwords down for her, and prepaid her so she'd have some money. Fast forward to yesterday, we arrived to find lots of things had been done to our home, and it sent me into a fit. My wife and I are 30-somethings who just bought our very first house together, and it was bought, remodeled into our likings. The list is as follows. Every wall in the house had been painted with a color that did not match our normal paint scheme. The job was also incomplete and patchy in most areas. The previous paint was totally fine and only 7 months old. Missing electrical outlet covers, still don't know why. Over 100 cigarette butts in my rose-potted plant out front. Items missing and moved. Pictures hung and holes in the walls. We did not intend on hanging anything yet until we decided on what we wanted to hang. A shop light was ran over the kitchen table and tacked to the wall. 6-foot ladder laid on vinyl records, destroying 3 of them in the process. Spare house key made by my mom's boyfriend. Now I feel like I must change my locks. Indoor dog bed thrown in the mud. Duct tape found over the motion detectors and Ring doorbell. Not to mention the whole reason I needed her in the first place, the dog. He'd been left out back, seemingly the entire time. He sleeps indoors and comes in frequently for heat breaks, barely fed, and his dog bed is caked in mud and rain, and I feel it is necessary to toss it in the garbage now. Naturally, I lost my head and my cool. I immediately started yelling about the fact that this is not their home. It was not okay for them to treat our home like it was theirs, doing whatever flight or fancy entered their brains. I almost suspect they could have been on something. That's the only thing I can rationalize their thought processes with. The entire time, my mother refused to accept responsibility for their actions, began to cry, and called me ungrateful. I feel like I'm being gaslit by my own mother for being upset. Our relationship is now tarnished even further than it was, and my wife doesn't want her back here. The scenario has played in my mind countless times, and I feel completely awful about yelling at her, but it's the complete lack of accepting responsibility on her part that has me fuming, on top of acting like nothing was even amiss. Am I the jerk here, or was I justified in my right to be upset? Update. Have completely ghosted my mom and blocked her cell phone number. I've changed the locks and began the process of fixing my home out of pocket. My dog is back to his chipper self and is scheduled for a vet visit tomorrow. I really appreciate everyone's support just pouring over this post. I will reply as much as possible. Thanks. Not the jerk. I'd press charges. You can sue her, but unless she has money or assets of some kind, you probably won't get much. OP. Thought about it, couldn't bring myself to sue my mother. And even if I could, the situation is as you'd imagine. She's broke with no assets other than a car. Yeah, I figured. May still be a good idea to press charges. Maybe talk to your homeowner's insurance and see if you have any way to recoup some money from damages. Always worth a shot. Not the jerk, but this is really bad. Like, call the police bad. I wonder, was it a complete surprise to you that your mom acted like this? She has no relevant history? Because in that case, I would want mom evaluated for neurological problems. If not, if you should have suspected this might happen, you owe your partner an enormous apology, and you must swear that finally the blinders are off and you are no longer in denial. Get your locks changed pronto. Time to tell mom she cannot be part of your life as long as she isn't sober. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you sue your mom or not? Please let us know. Suing would be an understatement for what I would do. Insane Karen gets rid of my cat, gets taught a lesson. I'm at the vet's waiting room with my cat as I'm writing this. So let me share a bit of my situation. I'm a 35-year-old woman, and I've been with my 45-year-old fiance for 3 years. He has 2 kids, a 22-year-old daughter who's a lovely girl, and another daughter who's 19. For the sake of this post, we'll call her Kim. Kim has always had a bad attitude, especially towards me. Now, before anyone assumes anything, My fiance was already divorced 2 years before we met, and his ex is a nice person whom I get along with very well. So there's no animosity from her end either. Currently, Kim is 3 months pregnant and living with us because we have more space to accommodate her and the baby. The baby daddy stays over sometimes, but he's juggling 2 jobs and studies, so I end up taking care of Kim most of the time. Today, the main issue arose when Kim's boyfriend came over. My fiance suggested we give them some privacy and go for a walk. When I returned home after a couple of hours, I noticed my cat was missing. Kim has never liked my cat and even wanted me to get rid of him. She claimed he ran out the door, but I knew that wasn't true. Whiskey, my elderly cat, wouldn't venture outside on his own. I checked the security camera and, as expected, I saw Kim throwing Whiskey out to run him off. I was devastated and couldn't hold back my emotions. I confronted Kim and told her she had 1 hour to find my cat, or I'd throw out all of her belongings in the dumpster and I would no longer be taking care of her. She retorted, saying she wasn't going to search for my stupid cat and asked me to back off, citing her pregnancy. My fiance tried to intervene and asked me to calm down, saying we would look for the cat together. I refused, determined to find my cat alone, and made it clear that if I returned and Kim was still there, I'd leave and my fiance could go with her too because I was fed up with dealing with his difficult daughter. I didn't wait for their response, and although I could hear her crying, I went on to search for Whiskey. Fortunately, I found him hiding in some bushes after what felt like an eternity. When I returned home, they were both in the living room. My fiance wanted to talk, but he insisted that I owed Kim an apology. I refused and told him to go to heck while demanding Kim start packing her things. As far as I know, she's currently staying with her boyfriend's family, and my fiance isn't speaking to me. Update. Surprisingly, my now ex-fiance's oldest daughter, whom I'll call Kate, reached out to me to hear my side of the story. She's an animal lover like myself and sensed something was off. My ex-fiance had spun a story about me having a breakdown over the cat and going off on Kim for not trying to catch him due to her condition. Kate is sharp and she knows her sister well, so she called Kim to get her side of the story. Kim was more honest with Kate, admitting that she and her dad had planned to get rid of my cat. Her baby daddy refused to do it, leading to an argument, and Kim lazily kicked Whiskey out of the yard. Kate also told me that Kim has been speaking negatively about me and Whiskey, and she fears that Kim might take some revenge on him in the future. After hearing all this, I decided to listen to Kate, my friends, the vet's assistant, and everyone here. I called off the wedding, which was just a few weeks away, and I broke up with my ex-fiance via text. Frankly, I don't care if it's immature or cruel. I told him I'd pack up his stuff for him to collect in a few days. The begging and empty promises have already started, but I'm determined to stand my ground. I'm done being an ATM and a slave for my ex-fiance and his spoiled daughter Kim. As for Whiskey, he's doing fine. He was a bit shaken up by the incident, but he's currently curled up in my lap, refusing to move. Not the jerk. As a cat owner, I salute you. I mean, yeah, you might lose the relationship over this, but from the sounds of it, if this doesn't do it, something else likely will. Not the jerk. Pregnancy hormones do not cause you to treat pets like this. That's just vicious entitlement and meanness. You do not owe her an apology. She should be begging for your forgiveness, and so should your ex. I'm getting married in 2 weeks, and I just found out my fiance has been helping her sister hide her secret affair. My fiance, Sarah, who's 28, and me, 34 male, have known each other for about 6 years, engaged for 1. Our wedding is scheduled to take place in just 2 weeks, and I just witnessed something that is making me feel like I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. Tonight, Sarah and I were taking a rare opportunity to relax at home. Sarah was in the kitchen making dinner while I was out back working on one of my projects. We live on acreage, and I'm building a fire pit in the backyard that we're planning on using this fall. Anyway, as you do when you're doing heavy labor, I get thirsty and come back to the house to get a drink, where I hear Sarah at the counter preparing dinner and talking on speakerphone. I recognize the voice instantly as my brother-in-law, Marty. Now, this is where my brain gets totally twisted. Marty asks Sarah where her sister Evelyn is at. He says he's been trying to get in contact with her and she's not answering texts, and I hear Sarah say to him, "She just left here. She should be home in half an hour or so." It should be noted that Evelyn is Marty's wife of 5 years. I have to admit that I didn't immediately register what she had just said, because I went into the kitchen and grabbed a glass and asked Sarah, "What was that all about?" And she responds with, "Marty was looking for Evie." I see her texting and I ask her, "What are you doing?" And she says, "I'm texting Evie that Marty was looking for her." Anyway, I pour myself a drink, sit down, have a sip, and then finally my brain starts to work. First off, I heard Sarah tell Marty that Evelyn was here. Evelyn was not here, and the last time we saw her was yesterday when she came over to work on some last-minute wedding decorations with Sarah. Secondly, why is she texting Evelyn and expecting a response when I distinctly heard Marty say that Evelyn wasn't answering texts? Lastly, why would she tell Marty that Evelyn should be back in 30 minutes unless she either knows where she is, then why did she lie? Or she's right now in front of me texting her, telling her to get home quickly. The only conclusion that I came up with is that Sarah is lying to Marty about the whereabouts of her sister, Marty's wife, and is probably warning Evie that Marty will expect her home in half an hour. I then spent probably the next 5 hours concocting various explanations for this behavior, some decent, some downright horrible, and playing them back in my head. I wanted really badly to ask Sarah about this, but at the same time, if what I think is going on, then I doubted I'd get a straight answer. Which brings me to about an hour ago. I woke up around 1 a.m. to use the bathroom, and I couldn't resist the urge to check Sarah's phone. We both know each other's pins, so this wasn't a difficult thing to do. Anyway, I grabbed the phone, retreated to the bathroom, and unlocked it, and yup, it was exactly what I was afraid of, and probably what most of you were expecting. Sarah's sister Evelyn has been having an affair for about 6 months with a coworker, and Sarah has been helping Evelyn to cover it up for almost that entire time. There are literally hundreds of texts between them discussing it, discussing the coworker, discussing her hooking up with him, really embarrassing things about my brother-in-law, and probably uncharitable. Just stuff that makes my stomach churn. And here's my soon-to-be wife going along with all of it without batting an eye. I took some screenshots of the entire thread, put the phone back where I found it, and then retreated to my home office to find myself here typing it all out on Reddit, simply so I can avoid the primal scream that wants to come out of my mouth right now. I'm totally done for, Reddit. I cannot marry Sarah. I just can't do it. I can't think of any reasonable excuse she could offer me about assisting her sister in this affair and victimizing not only Marty, but their family as well. On the other hand, myself, my family, Sarah, and her family have all sunk an enormous amount of money into a wedding that's supposed to happen in 2 weeks. There's no way that we're getting any of that money back. On top of that, I feel like an absolute fool. Like, how did I not know this woman was like this? And what am I going to do? I can't marry her. I just can't. However, I still want to. She's beautiful and fun and kind, and I thought we had a bright future ahead of us. She's never done anything wrong to me, but I just can't unsee this now. It's like a giant stain on an otherwise beautiful picture. I just don't know how I got into this, and I'm just dreading doing what I know I need to do. I feel like I want to throw up or break something. Edit. Guys, you don't need to convince me to not marry Sarah. That's obvious. The wedding is off. I'm just trying to figure out my next steps and work up the nerve to do it. There's an incredible amount of pressure on me from the expectations of everyone, but I'm not going to buckle under it. I'm not relishing having to deal with the fallout, and I'm more than a little angry that I'm in this situation. Edit 2. It's 5 a.m. I have work in 3 hours, and I'm running off a couple hours of sleep. I'm gonna take a shower and head into work early to avoid Sarah and stew on this. I got to work around 7. No one was in the office, so I decided to start pulling off the band-aid and I called my brother. He lives in Australia, so he was up after having just put his kids to sleep. It was hard breaking the news to him about this because I know he has laid out a huge amount of money for flights for him and his family to come to the wedding. But to his credit, as an older brother, he didn't mention it even once and just backed me up. He made a great point too. He said, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, "You work in a job where you have to deal with liars and scammers day in and day out. I don't blame you for wanting to have somewhere to go where that's not a concern." He was totally right about that, and I get now why I'm reacting so strongly to Sarah's participation in this deceit. He also had a great idea. He was going to take his family down to Florida to do some sightseeing and visit the parks. Well, now the kids will be accompanied by their uncle as well. It should be easy since we were going to honeymoon there as well, and we were planning on meeting them for a bit anyway. I'll just rebook everything to be closer to him and his family, and I'll offer Sarah's ticket to either my sister or another family member. Edit 5. Got to Marty's house a little after 10 a.m. He had just put his daughter down for a nap, and we had a long, frankly brutal talk in the kitchen. Basically, he suspected this for a couple of months now, but Evelyn has been very good at covering her tracks, obviously with the assistance of Sarah and a couple of their mutual friends. I unfortunately do not have all 6 months of the text messages, just a couple dozen screenshots I sent to myself from Sarah's phone. But I gave him what I have and offered to help him however I could. I work in insurance, specializing in workers' compensation fraud, so I know a few things and a few people. Anyway, I'm now working from my laptop in his kitchen, trying to salvage whatever I can. I'm going to have to talk to Sarah this evening and get the word out as fast as I can to my friends and family that I know won't do Marty over. So far, I managed to rebook most of the honeymoon. Also, I do not hate Sarah. I don't approve of what she did. I frankly find it repulsive, and I'm shocked by uncovering how two-faced she can be and how she treats people, but I don't hate her. I'm just incredibly sad about everything, and the "I'm done for" part of my post is really the short time frame I have to work under. Basically, our relationship is in a state where I cannot get married to her. Update. Marty asked for my help in finding out who the other guy was that Evelyn was cheating on him with. All we had to go on was a name. Let's call him Jake. The first thing I did was basically just go through LinkedIn trying to find the guy through Evelyn's connections, but that brought up nothing, which I thought was strange. Marty had told me that Evelyn was supposed to go out for drinks tonight after work, and that she said she wouldn't be home until around 9 or 10. He didn't have to tell me what he suspected, since I pretty much understood right away. I told him that I would help him, but he needed to come with me. I then contacted my buddy Mark, explained the situation to him, and had him agree to meet us later in the day. The first thing we did was drive over to Marty's parents' house so they could watch their granddaughter. I don't know what Marty told them as I waited in the car. After that, we went to Evelyn's place of work. It's one of those large commercial strip malls. We drove around until we found Evelyn's car, and then I had Marty unlock it with a second set of keys. I then gave Marty a voice-activated recorder and a GPS tracker to place in the car. Once we were done with that, we left, parked a bit down the street, and waited for my friend to arrive and for Evelyn to leave the business. Mark shows up about 20 minutes later, hops in the car with us, and around an hour later, Evelyn comes out of her office with two of her girlfriends and a tall, younger-looking man with sandy blonde hair. They're obviously holding hands, and I'm like, dang, Evelyn, you're making it too easy for me. I take a couple of pictures from the car and then wait for Evelyn to leave in hers, and I start tracking her. At first, I thought she might go right to a hotel or something, but she didn't. Instead, she drove to a reasonably nice bar and grill in a nice section of town and parked on the street. I drove by her as she was getting out of her car and entering the establishment, and then found my own parking spot and went over the plan. First, we sent Mark in, since no one knew him. He had basically two jobs: to try and get any compromising pictures he could of Evelyn and Jake, and second, to be my alibi. Marty and I waited in the car for around 20 minutes until I got the first in the series of text messages from Mark. They were pictures of Evelyn and Jake making out in front of their two female coworkers. Marty's suspicions were right. They had been helping Evelyn hide the affair from him. He was obviously very upset and angry. Evidently, one of the coworkers is married, and as a couple, they are good friends with Marty and Evelyn. Both of them even have kids around the same age. I asked Marty if that's enough for him, but he says he still really wants to know who the guy is. I try to tell him that we can find out later, but he's practically begging me at this point, so I tell him to wait, text Mark that I'm coming in, and then enter the bar myself. First thing I see is Evelyn and her crew laughing and drinking at one of those tall round tables. I stop for a moment, pretend to be surprised, and then call out to Evelyn. "Evelyn, hi, what are you doing here?" She's obviously shocked to see me, and everyone around her tenses up immediately. Evelyn quickly introduces me as her sister's fiance and says that we're getting married in 2 weeks. There are a lot of congratulations from everyone. I thank them and then stick out my hand to the blonde guy and introduce myself with my full name, hoping that he'll respond in kind. He does, and I'm a bit taken aback. He's not named Jake. I introduce myself to everyone else and then tell Evelyn that I'm here to meet a coworker. I wave to Mark and then excuse myself. Once I get over to Mark, I tell him the guy's name and we both whip out our phones and go to work. It doesn't take long for us to find him. He's got social media profiles and a couple of court case judgments against him. Everything sort of falls into place when we find out that Jake is his middle name. At this point, I'm basically just grateful that Evelyn isn't cheating on Marty with two different coworkers. Turns out that Jake is 26, married, and they have a 1-year-old. This just keeps getting better. Anyway, I text Marty the guy's name, and I decide I want to push my luck and tell him to wait a few more minutes. Basically, I'm playing babysitter here at the bar. I'm totally visible to Evelyn and her crew, and I'm happy to know that my presence is ruining their night. I let this go on for about 10 minutes, and then tell Marty to text Evelyn that he's spending the night at his parents' house with their daughter. It doesn't take long after that until I catch Evelyn taking out her phone, showing it to Jake, and then everyone deciding to pack up. Evelyn comes over to me, says goodnight, and asks me if Sarah and I want to come over for dinner this weekend. I smile and say that sounds like a great idea, and wish her and her coworkers a good night. Mark and I wait for them to leave, then pay our bill and hurry back to Marty. There's a bit of hesitation here because we don't know exactly what Evelyn was going to do. We thought she might have already booked a hotel room and was heading there, which would have made things more complicated. But it turns out that tonight was probably meant to be just drinks at the bar, and it wasn't until Marty decided to spend the night at his parents' house that it turned into something more. Evelyn made a beeline for home, and we followed behind her way out of sight and parked down the street. It didn't take long after that until another car pulled up into Marty's driveway and we saw Jake get out, go up to the door, knock, and be greeted by Evelyn. Then they went inside together. Now at this point, it's about 7:30 and I have my own stuff to do tonight, and I think that as a friend, I've pretty much done everything I can for Marty and he can handle the rest himself. I mean, I feel bad for the guy definitely, but I don't want to get any more involved in this drama than I already am, and being the wingman for him while he confronts his cheating wife is a bit much for me considering my situation. Marty says it's fine, that he'll do the rest of it himself. Guess he's more of a man than you thought, Evelyn. He goes to Evelyn's car, retrieves my gear, and we bid each other goodbye. That was almost 2 hours ago. I did get one text message from Marty saying it was done, and he was going to his parents' house for real this time, but my phone hasn't been blowing up, so I don't know what's been going on with Evelyn, and I've been at Mark's since then. I think that basically concludes my part in Marty's story. If he was smart and listened to my advice, he was recording with his phone when he entered the house. I'll find out later. Anyway, my biggest priority now is to head home and tell Sarah that the wedding is off. She's almost 100% going to take it badly. There's no way she won't. But like I said, I just can't get married to her right now. I don't know what the future holds for us or if we'll be done with each other or not, but definitely we're not getting married anytime soon. Also, for people who keep saying, why didn't you talk to her first? Why didn't you confront her? I have to say, are you people stupid? She stone cold lied in front of me to her brother-in-law that she had known for about 10 years and purportedly thinks he is a really great husband and father. Maybe you're naive enough to think that someone can lie that coldly to someone they are supposed to care about and then tell you the truth, but I'm not wired that way. Until that moment, I never had a cause to ever second-guess Sarah or not trust her, but she was literally untrustworthy in front of my face, and I'm supposed to let it slide or expect her to be honest with me? I guess you don't know what it's like to have your entire view of someone shift in an instant. It's disorienting and frankly a bit panic-inducing. It would have been so easy for her to lie to me and then delete those messages, and if she had done that, I never would have read the horrible things she said, never seen how she can be so two-faced, and never realized how little I actually knew her. I caught my future mother-in-law trying on my wedding dress. My fiance allowed her to do this without even asking me first. So I'm getting married to my fiance soon. I bought my wedding dress weeks ago. My future mother-in-law kept pestering me about trying it on, but I firmly refused. I finally shut it down after she offered me $100 to let her try it on. Her reasoning for persisting so much? She says it's because of her love for wedding dresses and her obsession with them. Fast forward to yesterday. I came home from work early and I found my fiance at home. He freaked out after seeing me and tried to prevent me from going into my room while trying to text somebody on his phone. I opened the door and I was shocked to see his mom standing there wearing my wedding dress. I instantly pulled out my phone and took a photo of her. She and my fiance freaked out after I told her that she needed to pay me for a new dress in 3 days or else I'll show the whole family the photo. She started crying and then left, and my fiance blew up at me saying I can't be serious and that I overreacted because his mom just wanted to try the dress on, no harm done. But I refused to listen to him because in my opinion, the dress should only be worn by the bride and the bride only. Quite frankly, I felt disgusted looking at the dress again. I don't want it anymore. And so I think it's only fair that she pays me after she ruined it for me. He yelled at me and told me to wake up and stop treating his mom like this as if she was an enemy. We had a fight after he failed to get me to back down, and he's been staying with his mom since then. I felt awful, but I spent $3,000 on this dress and I worked hard to get it. I can't stop looking at it, but people in my family think I'm escalating things and risking my relationship with not only future mother-in-law, but my fiance as well. Am I the jerk? Update. My fiance called and offered to pay for the dress himself so we can end the conflict, but he wants me to hand him my phone so he can delete the photo himself, swear that I don't have any copies to use against his mom later, apologize to his mom, and lastly, he asked that I quit his family group chat and log out of Facebook for at least a month. I haven't responded yet. P.S. He called with this offer and conditions hours ago, but I didn't want to include this in the post, but now I did. Also, I'm not sure if I'll agree because I don't want him to pay for it. I want his mom to pay for it, the one who wore it. Not being vicious, but trying to hold her accountable. Not the jerk. But are you sure you want to marry this guy? He stood guard outside so that his mother could try on your wedding dress. Do you think he will ever stand up against her for you? Not the jerk. But the problem isn't just your future mother-in-law, it's your fiance. He let her in. He was going to lie and hide this from you that she tried it on. He's defending her actions. He disrespected your belongings. He didn't care about your feelings and still doesn't. He has shown he doesn't care about your boundaries. He decided his mother wanted to try it on, and that's more important than your feelings, and that won't go away when you're married. Personally, my petty self would call off the engagement, and the announcement of that would be the picture of his mom in my wedding dress stating, "Unfortunately, I cannot marry him. It appears he's already emotionally committed to his mother." At the bare minimum, you should postpone until he can respect your boundaries. My wife always gets sick when I take vacation. We're both 38. She always gets sick when I take vacation from work. She's a stay-at-home mom with lots of freedom. If she's having an off day, I encourage her that laundry, etc. can wait. I work 40+ hours a week at a salary job and it's high stress. It's not unusual to get calls after hours or work on Saturday. I'm active with the kids and also help with the house. When I take vacation from work, it's scheduled 30+ days in advance. Most of the time, it's a staycation, relax at home. She's well aware of the dates. It never fails. My vacation arrives, and she's either sick or not feeling well, like sore back. My plans get canceled, like sleeping in or a morning fishing trip. She feels bad for feeling bad, usually cries, and spends the whole time in bed. This isn't normal. How do I deal with this? I've tried to discuss it in the past, but it just turns into her crying. This round, I get 2 days off, and suddenly her back hurts bad enough she can barely walk. She claimed that she cleaned all day, but the kids said she basically just played a computer game. Help. Update. The plan is to split my vacation with her. The first half hers, the second mine. It's very possible that she is not intentionally being sick, but her body knows she can finally slow down and rest. We will also be going to marriage counseling, whether she wants to or not. Update 2. To clarify, by vacation, I mean time off from work. During my vacation, we split the time between 1 day for me and 1 day for her. 2 days with a sitter for us to enjoy together, and the rest is spent hanging out as a family. I help her with the kids and house before and after work. I also work from home some and help during those days too. It's not uncommon for her to leave the kids with me and go have lunch with a friend or visit the park. I'm getting a ton of comments saying I'm obviously a horrible partner and dad. I should give her more time. I love her and I'm doing everything I can and asking for advice. If this is how you feel, go away and take your anger out on someone else. Most partners don't do half of what I do. I'm going to schedule couples counseling and have an open conversation about it. I'll go even if she doesn't. This was suggested by a counselor. All the hateful comments are funny. Good reminders that people on the internet aren't afraid to be rude. Most of the people seem to be stay-at-home moms whose husbands are also on vacation. Obviously, this is a bigger issue you two will have to work out. But in the meantime, try hiring a sitter in advance on your days off, or arrange for family to come stay, or for her and the kids to go stay with family. Stock the house with cold medicine, Pepto-Bismol, tissues, cold packs, and chicken soup. If and when she gets sick, she'll be set. Obligatory, I'm not a therapist or mental health care professional. When I go weeks on end, very stressed about a project at work, once the project is done, I get sick. I assume it's my body finally relaxing on adrenaline production, but have no scientific evidence to back that up. It's possible your wife's pain is very real and it's just getting released when you're home because she feels like she can relax a bit then. Therapy and anxiety medication has significantly helped me cut down on this happening. Best of luck to you. If a man did this to his wife, we'd all be screaming weaponized incompetence, which it absolutely is. This isn't okay, and you're right to be mad. She is definitely manipulating you. I don't know why it's important to her that you spend your days off taking care of her, but that's something the two of you definitely need to talk about. You say that you work a lot. Is there a chance your wife is really desperate to reconnect with you, and this is the only way that she's figured out how to do it? I'm not saying it's a good or healthy way to go about it at all, but this might be your wife trying in a very clumsy way to communicate she'd appreciate you being around your family more. Also, seeing a lot of interesting assumptions in the comments. I'm not male, my dudes. Am I the jerk for saying again after my sister announced that she's pregnant with twins? I'm 21, female. My sister, who's 32, has been married to her husband who's 33 for 8 years. They already have 6 kids total, the last one born 5 months ago. Yesterday, my sister had announced that she's 3 months pregnant with twins, and while everyone was congratulating her, I said out loud, "Oh my goodness, again? Can't your stupid husband leave you alone?" I didn't mean to say it out loud, but it slipped out, and my sister looked at me angrily and literally dragged me into another room and asked, "Why did you say that?" I told her that she and her husband have been pregnant every year for the last 8 years and that she needs to take a break. I was worried about her having so many babies in such a short time, and I didn't want anything bad to happen to her. She then said, "How about you leave us alone and worry about your own stuff? This is my life, so back off." My mother told me that I should apologize for being rude, but I told her that I won't apologize for showing concern. But now I just can't help but think that maybe I was a jerk and sticking my nose in other people's business. I was just worried, but maybe I was being a jerk. Am I the jerk? Edit. Yes, I do babysit my sister's kids sometimes, and all 6 of them at the same time whenever they need me if I'm available. They pay me $30 to $50 an hour, but their kids are pretty destructive and they don't respect other adults like they're supposed to, so it's a full chore watching after them. I'm aware that the stupid husband comment was inappropriate, but I have almost no filter, and my stupid mouth says things before my brain can stop it. Update. I apologized to my sister for insulting her husband and making that rude comment, but I told her that I'm still worried about her having so many kids back to back, and I'm just concerned in general about her health and well-being. She actually forgave me, and she said it's because 1, I'm her younger sister, 2, she knows about my problem with keeping my thoughts to myself and that I'm working on myself, and 3, she knows that I'm concerned for her and she appreciates it. But she assured me that she's fine and said that this pregnancy wasn't planned and her husband plans on having a vasectomy because they both want this pregnancy to be the last. For those asking in the comments how they can afford to have these many kids, he runs a very successful business and she's still co-partner with her best friend in a company that they both started before she got married. How she manages to juggle being a full-time mom and work there is beyond me, but she does. That's why I babysit sometimes when the nanny isn't available 24/7. Her husband was the one who initially wanted a big family, and my sister just went along with the idea. But that's their business. You're the jerk, but it needed to be said. You're a good jerk. In my opinion, not the jerk. That's too many kids to give adequate care to, and being pregnant consecutively for that long is really hard on someone's body and mental health, whether they want to admit it or not. Not the jerk. We as a society need to move away from this idea that parents are above reproach. That's too many kids to adequately care for in today's society. You could have been more tactful, but someone needs to think about the well-being of her kids here. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that I don't want to take care of his son anymore? My boyfriend, who's 30, has a son who's 6. When I first got with my boyfriend, his son was only 2 at the time. His mother didn't want me to be involved in the care of their kid, and she and I have never really seen eye to eye. In the beginning, it went really well, and his son was here every other week. But the older he got, the less time he was with his mom, and he's with us 100% of the time now since his mom was arrested a year ago. In the beginning, we divided the chores and childcare equally. 4 months ago, my boyfriend got an opportunity to work on 3 projects, which could lead him to a big promotion. He's always working late, either from home or in the office. I've been doing all the chores and childcare since then. I cook, clean, get his son ready in the morning, and drop him off at daycare. The only thing my boyfriend has to do is get his son ready for bed. I told him last Friday that from Monday on, I won't be doing the childcare anymore. He got angry. He said we're a family and we need to support each other. He told me he needed me right now and that I just needed to be patient. I replied saying that this is his son and he needs to do the majority of the childcare. I've been doing all of it and it's not fair since he's the father. He then went into the other room, got his son, and he said, "Mommy says she doesn't want to take care of you anymore," while pointing at me. I said not to call me that because I'm not his mother, and his son started crying. I of course comforted and apologized to his son because it wasn't my intention to upset him. My boyfriend is still mad and has been taking care of his son, but he won't speak to me. I didn't think this was unreasonable. He's the parent and needs to do more of the childcare. And also, the mom doesn't even want me to be involved in the kid's life, so I'm already overstepping her wishes. My sister is on his side and says I'm at fault since he and I are a family now, and he needs my support, and that the mother's wishes don't matter at all right now. Like, I don't think this was at all unreasonable, but I'm not sure if I was unreasonable here. Am I the jerk? I see a lot of you asking if I work. I do. I'm giving at-home care to the elderly and disabled. I've lowered the number of hours that I work to 20 to 28 hours per week. How demanding my work is truly depends on the day and which client I have on my schedule. Sometimes I have clients on my schedule that don't require a lot of time and I'm finished by noon, and the other times I have to work until 8 p.m. It really varies per day. Not the jerk. Don't hide behind what the mom would want. Whether you're the stepmom or not is irrelevant here. He's dumping all of this on you, and that's unfair, whether you're stepmom, biological, or whatever. If that's not the life you want, you need to break up and leave, because he's obviously benefiting from you providing full-time childcare and domestic labor and won't want to give it up because it has value and he's extracting that value from you and doesn't want to start paying someone to do what you do for free. This relationship is over. If you stay, this is the life you'll have. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.